Board of Education regular business meeting for which adequate notice in the Open Public Meetings Law was provided by written notice on May 7th, 2008 to the Courier News, the Echo Sentinel, the Reporter, the Star Ledger, and the clerks of the boroughs of Watchung and the townships of Long Hill and Warren. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Binder? Here. Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Calzerano? Mrs. Beckner?
Here.
Mr. Horowitz? Yes. Mr. Pepe notified he will not be able to attend. Mr. Mendel?
Here.
Mr. Sun? Dr. Yaggett?
Here.
Dr. Seeley?
Here. Pledge of allegiance. Here. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a bit of a ceremony to start, although I don't think there's anybody here. 6 stacked recognitions of that for retiring. Fran, do you want to take it away?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. First, let me start off by saying it is certainly a great pleasure to be back here at work. I sincerely appreciated all the good wishes and cards, and I probably have over 100 cards at home from staff and faculty. All the expressions of concern that I received over this past month that I've been out. This is truly a great place to work, and I'm really honored to be in your company. You're all very caring and supportive, and I must say that these two gentlemen on right and left have done a tremendously effective job of keeping their hands steady on the tiller of the good ship Watchung Hills as we've been sailing along through the last several weeks of things that typically hit the issues of a school district, like sewerage and backed up pipes and all kinds of things that have happened. But they've done a phenomenal job, and I'm truly, truly grateful to all of you, and especially to these two, for really keeping a steady hand on the helm. Thank you so much. As far as I can see, we don't have any staff of the retirees here this evening. I'll just let you know who they are, just so that you know that we're so grateful to them for their years of service here at our district. Dan Benson has been recognized here as the Teacher of the Year. He spent a good number of years here. I believe he was employed here in 1971, so he's had a long run. He will certainly be sorely missed. Phyllis Cornelius, also retiring this year, has been in our district many years as a secretary for our school, and she really is the one that has steady hand on the operation of when people are calling out sick, either in the morning or the night before. She organizes all the substitutes, all the coverage, and believe me, that is no simple task, especially a school this big. Patty Gayton, certainly that's a name that most of you are very familiar with. Patty has been really the anchor of our arts department. She has helped our students achieve success in the arts to the degree that is more like a college level program. She has truly been a valuable teacher here, and been an art educator for over 30 years, and we've been blessed to have her for most of those. Ray Gebauer is a math teacher here, was employed here in September of 1980. He is probably most affectionately remembered by me as the weather guru. Whenever I have a concern about whether schools should be open or closed or what's going to happen with the weather, I take myself down to Ray's room, and he is never wrong. Every time I've listened to his advice, it's been spot on and perfect. So I personally will miss Ray for his all his help with weather predicting, although he is certainly an outstanding teacher of mathematics. Tom Sotolaro is also in our math department, has been with us since 1986. Tom, a very dedicated staff member, very concerned about his students, and certainly has demonstrated that competence he has in mathematics over the years with us. And finally, last but not least, is our Teacher of the Year this year, Janet Warner. Janet has been employed here since 1972 in our English department. She is beloved by the students. She is known to the students for her eloquence in writing college recommendation letters. She has such a depth of knowledge of the subject area as well as such a motivating teacher for our students that indeed she will be one that will be sorely missed as well. She will be honored, I think, on Thursday at Fiddler's Elbow with the Governor's Teachers Recognition Program, where she will be given an award by the state as well. So, it's certainly bittersweet to say goodbye to these high-quality, wonderful, compassionate, caring educators, but we certainly understand they need to move on in their lives as well, and have certainly given us a great deal to be proud of. Thank you very much.
Is there an in-house day that I remember?
Yes.
But I don't know when.
Well, actually, they all get their own day. What we do is we make a little button out of paper with their photo, and many times we do sort of a before and after photo, the photo of when they first started with us, the picture, and then the current picture. So we have sort of a now and then type of photo, and then we have a party where we basically honor them. Each one gets their own.
Are we welcome to come up to?
I don't see why not. Any of you certainly are welcome to come up to honor them.
Somebody send out an email as to what
Sure.
That would be
Have you had any
wonderful.
so far, Tom? Have you had any of these get-togethers so far?
Patty Gatins is the only solid one, and that's June 16th.
Okay.
And you will email us.
We'll email you and let you know.
If I can, I would certainly like to drop in and say my farewells and thanks to them.
I'm sure it'd be much appreciated.
The art department wanted the entire day, so we had to come in.
To contain them a little bit.
Commissioner's retirement dinner.
Oh, yes, that's right. On June 13th at the Martinsville Inn. I believe it starts at 5:30.
I think even earlier.
Or 5 p.m.
I was shocked at how
4
early it
p.m.?
was.
Okay, 4 p.m.
Yes.
At the Martinsville Inn, they begin with, I believe, like a short cocktail hour, and then they move into dinner, and I believe the tickets are $50 per person.
It may be a longer cocktail hour since you're starting the board.
Maybe starting early, maybe it is longer. But all I know is every year it's very, very nicely done, and the Martinsville Inn does a very nice job for us.
Thank you.
And that $50 will include the gift.
Oh, yes, it includes gift and dinner, yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments?
No, thank you very much.
We'll certainly miss the experience of the teachers that are leaving. It's hard to replace good teachers. It's very hard. I have one comment. We're trying to schedule the board retreat. And you had 3 dates that were in the blue notes, and then it came back that there was only one day that we had actually available to us that Gwen Consultant could join us, which was the 27th of June. 27th is a Friday. We would do it from 12 to 5. I certainly realize that those who are employed are going to have trouble getting there, but I would like to just do a kind of a straw poll to find out if anybody knows, could they make it on the 27th? Who could make it? June 27th. I don't want to exclude it. It's a Friday. I don't want to exclude the day out of hand without checking. Is there anybody who knows they can't make it that day?
You've got one on your left.
Right.
I don't think I'll be able to make it.
We'd love to have you.
Okay.
Are we talking about the afternoon, or are you talking about the evening?
It's after noon to 5. Here?
Yes.
It has to be here. Why does it have to be here?
New regulations.
Technically, it doesn't have to be here.
Like a Chubb where you get it for free?
Well, actually, at Chubb,
mean, I don't mean-
the meeting
we
space
pay-
they did let us use for free, but we did have to pay for the refreshments.
We pay for the food.
Actually, the regulations read on campus unless there is insufficient room. Regardless of cost, you could actually get it free off-site if regulations say on campus.
Is there anybody else who thinks if I wouldn't be able to make it on a Friday afternoon? I will reach out to Eric and to Peter Fell, find out their position. I really would like to try to get every board member there like we tried last year.
Do you have any other alternative dates at this
Not
point?
this time. But we find out, we ask that you explore dates out into July
Okay.
to try to bring, so we can get everybody together. And let's shoot for a Saturday. Okay? I don't like Fridays or weekdays if I can help it.
Why not the evening? There's just not enough time?
We did it in the evening last time. We would do it in the evening.
I was just curious.
Let me ask you a question. Would people want to do it maybe on a weekday evening?
We could do 5 to 10, which is the same 5 hours as 12 to 5.
Anybody have any comments on it, one way or the other? Strong feelings? 6 to 10, 5 to 10, something like that?
Well, if you do 5 to 10, I don't want to go to Friday.
No, you're right, I got that. Good idea.
The only thing is, I think your comment about having as many people there, preferably everybody, would be the best.
Maybe we could explore some evenings also towards the end of June also, and see what we could do there, maybe from 5 to 10, something like that.
How about at least 5:30 or 6?
Maybe 5:30. We'll push it back as far as we can. Find out what we can do, okay? With that, why don't we move on to the comments from the business administrator?
Mr. President, I only have a couple, one of which is I put in your package, we received a letter from Assemblyman Bramnick, I hope I pronounced that properly.
Family is correct.
Just acknowledging our letter opposing the paid family leave, also discussing that he sponsored Assembly Bill 2787, which called for the repeal of paid family leave. That's in your packet. And the other thing, which I just wanted to bring to your attention, is a couple things with regard to the draft regulations. I'm just going to read a couple of these items, just so you're aware that they're out there. There's a very thick document that essentially is A5 and A1 that they're looking to codify, and they're looking to do this rather quickly. The Commissioner has been very aggressive in trying to get this through. I'm just going to read a couple of things that pertain, because I could spend all night on this thing, which that's really exciting for everyone. But a couple of key things that you should be mindful of.
Tim, but what is it? It's a lot of paper. What is the back?
What this is A1 and A5 Assembly bills, which called for Accountability Act for school districts.
Okay.
A lot of this stems from, there was an investigation made by, it wasn't a state organization, but it was the SCI. And what they had found is there were abuses in travel in some of the boards, and there were abuses in some of the contracts. We've heard about that lately with the Kingsburg situation. And what those assembly bills essentially tried to address some of those issues. These are the codes that they want to put into law to make it official. Some of these things we're operating under memos, clarifications. Once they make a code, then it's official and it's set in place. I'm just going to go through a couple of the categories of some of the things that are actually written here, just so you're aware of. One of the items.
These would be things that we would have to follow.
Yeah, these are codes, and these are things that we're already following. We're starting to. This will actually make it a lot more concrete. In terms of the budget, you've heard a lot. We talked about the budget, and then through our budget guidelines, obviously things have changed quite a bit. But this is one of the things that's going to be, again, stronger in their language, and that's the executive county superintendent has more power in terms of reviewing a budget and making line item changes. And this is a sentence that's just one of the sentences I've written in. The executive county superintendent shall order any changes in proposed expenditures that are found unsuitable or inappropriate, including administrative spending. So the language there is telling you that the executive county superintendent can go through that budget. And there are more words, there are more examples of that within this. I'm just going to go through them because it would spend a lot of time. But that's a key aspect of budgeting going forward, that the executive county superintendent can go through that budget now. And if they see things that are inefficient, they can recommend changes.
To that one, I thought there was some language about if you're below that or you're above average, then they can do certain things too on administrative spending, which seemed weird because average is average, but somebody's going to be above and somebody's going to be below. But I don't know if you picked that up in that. Is that part of that administrative one or not?
Yeah, that's essentially already been in there, but I think they're going a step further. They're looking at other line items outside of administrative spending, and if they see things that are not consistent with other state districts in your operating field, then they can make changes, they can suggest changes on those items. And then we'll be using a whole bunch of state data to determine that.
And you said suggest and you said recommend. So if we have a special situation, or a school has a special situation that they really want to funnel some money into, you're saying it's still only a suggestion or recommendation. It's not that they come down and say, can't do it.
No, I'm not so sure about that, Sandy. The language is strong in here, and they may be able...
They may be able is a polite word for we would demand.
They're not codifying this to give you a recommendation. These are dictates.
Here's another item in terms of administrative and non-instructional expenses. Review of all local public school districts. The executive county superintendent shall, prior to advertising before the district board, review all local public school district budgets of the school districts within the county and may disapprove a portion of a school district's proposed budget if the school district has not implemented all potential efficiencies in its administrative operations, or if the budget includes excessive non-instructional expenses. And that's in line with what I said before. One of the things that we've talked about in terms of the contracts, reviewing employment contracts, the executive county superintendent shall review and approve all employment contracts, including original and renewal contracts and the renegotiation, extension, amendment, or other alterations of the terms of employment of superintendents, assistant superintendents, and school business administrators. And the county is, in fact, reviewing mine as we speak.
Tim, could I ask, why do you think that they've confined it to just 3 positions rather than the entire contract with the association, which probably has 100 times the impact? Is there anything in that talks about review of the big contract?
Right.
They actually are talking about a law which would allow them to negotiate a contract.
Yeah, why it's not in this code?
It's not there yet.
Again, I
kind of rest my case. I mean, they've missed the big boat.
The other ostensibly is a collective bargaining agreement between 2 separate parties, Bernie. But really, this is a reaction to where was the town? The person walked away with $750,000.
Keensburg.
Okay, so that's the the abuse that is they're reacting to at the moment.
Right.
I mean, I can't, if start seeing school districts, give 40% salary increases to teachers, then I'm sure they would, if they thought that was an abuse, they would, and it's starting to be, more prevalent, they would step in there. They're always after the fact.
Just a couple other items. The commissioner now may appoint an external entity to perform a compliance audit of the school district's general fund spending upon identification that the school district may be spending education funds for purposes that are not in compliance with state education laws and regulations. And that's probably designed to be more punitive. There are some items about public relations. I don't want to get into details, but they've really gone after limiting the board's ability to pay for public relations. It's a lengthy section, but I thought that was curious. Why would they're pushing to limit the public relations? Obviously, they see that as frivolous.
Even to the kind of paper you could use to do mailings with, I believe.
That's correct. There was comments by the commissioner about glossy paper versus using non-glossy paper for budget newsletters and such. Some of the travel items, which are rather interesting. School district, and you're aware of some of the travel stuff, but school district travel expenditures shall not include costs for the following: subsistence reimbursement for one-day trips, no meals for a one-day trip, no meals for overnight travel within the state except where authorized by the commissioner. Obviously, no meals for a spouse or a member of the family, lunch or refreshments for training sessions and retreats held within the school district, including in-service days, and for employee participants traveling from other locations within the school district are prohibited. A couple things. This is the thing that I've talked to a couple folks about. I think it's interesting. Regular meetings, special meetings, and workshops of the Board of Ed shall be limited to light meals and refreshments. essentially limiting to an average of $10 per person. The SBA, and I laugh at this one, shall maintain a list of board members and staff by name who received a light meal. The school district shall acquire the light meals refreshments by the solicitation of 3 quotes. Quotes may be monthly, bi-monthly, and on an annual basis. We can use our own food service company, and this is I'll leave it with this one. Any leftover meals shall remain within the school district and shall not be removed from the school district for personal consumption, except where the school district is reimbursed the actual cost of the meal. So no cookies
How long
in
do you have
the
to
room.
keep in there?
What do they do with it? Do they track the leftovers? Do they track, where the leftovers are going? And,
You should do those.
and, I mean, what about bringing leftovers, like food to a food bank and that?
Can we get together with the other schools in Somerset County and send all that food to the Department of Education? After 7 weeks.
Gladly.
The one,
Okay.
Maybe after it goes rancid.
Yeah.
is there anything there about the cafeteria being balanced too, or running it?
Yes, there is. The cafeteria, that's one of the examples of an inefficiency. The cafeteria, if it runs in the red, is considered inefficiency, which they can take a look at with the budget. And that's
Something to be aware of, I guess.
obviously problematic for us.
All these things are reactions that, I don't know, was it Cooper's, who audited the 28 Abbott districts?
PKMG.
Yeah, and I'm sure at some of these Abbott districts or the Board of Education, they're catering, local, whatever, restaurants, and so, the abuse is there, so rather than, dealing with the abuse there, they have a broad stroke to prevent, any district from, doing things which are even sensible or reasonable. So, we pay the price, for the excesses to these other districts, and that's, clear.
That's where it typically comes out. So any other things?
No, that's all I have for now.
With that, we'll move on. Principal's report is not on the agenda, but we're going to have a brief principal's report from Dr. DeGancy.
Basically, I asked Tom if he would be so kind to do an update on the common lunch. We had our first attempt at serving all, I guess, about 1,500 students, and the seniors were out that day. And Tom and his staff shepherded that effort, so I'd like Tom to report on that, please.
When we first talked about the possibility of a common lunch dry run, we met with Pomptonians, and their one caution was it takes a couple days to work through it, and the kids might not get a valid look at it with just one day. And then the kids also have to get used to the time, going from like 25 minutes to 40, 42 minutes. So we knew that. So in the end of April, we started to prepare the kids. We met with all of the students, 9th, 10th, 11th graders, in their English or history classes to discuss not only the common lunch as it was connected to the science, but also what the rotating drop was. And while we only asked for about 15 to 20 minutes from each of the classes, sometimes it lasted the whole period because kids have quite naturally classes. And we settled on May 30th as the day because we knew we'd have maybe between 15 and 1,600 students, which somehow would simulate the amount of students that we would have in a lunch period, because we recall during half the lunch, approximately 200 or 300 kids will be in a lab, and in the second half of the lunch, another 200 or 300 kids will be in a lab every day or thereabouts. And I was in the South Cafeteria where we had our 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. We used both 7 and 8 and 7 and 8 with the tables down and the stands pulled out and a food station set up. We used our normal South Cafeteria, our normal senior lounge, and our normal outside gazebo areas. In the north, we used the North Cafeteria, room 105, which was the old weight room, and gym 5-6, and they were all for our freshmen. I was over with the sophomores, juniors, and seniors, where I normally am located, and my impressions were it ran very smoothly. It really did, in large measure because we had told the kids where to go and in a sense what to do. The lines were a little longer than expected, But then again, they had 40 minutes, 45 minutes to get their food and to sit down. We were comfortable with the time, maybe a tad too long, but certainly comfortable. And there was certainly enough seating for everyone at that point. In ninth grade, kids were fidgety. After about 20 minutes, 25, they were fidgety, walking around. They could go from the north cafeteria down to gym 5, 6, but congregated around, not knowing, not getting used to the time. As again, they're used to 25 minutes, no more, no less, so they needed to get used to that. Other than that, we saw that the time was sufficient, and we were pleased. Given what we thought, what would happen, complete chaos, it was a pleasant surprise. And as I said, Pomptonian said that it usually takes 2 to 3 days to work itself out. And I'm sure that'll happen in September when we have it run for good. That was my impression.
Thanks.
Could we hear from the student
Yes.
representative?
We'll get to that. I don't know if you want to do that. Do you want to have a question, Tom?
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Now, are the kids allowed, is it an open campus and the kids are allowed to go wherever? Because they will be going for extra help and there will be different activities happening. So how is that going to?
We had supervisors in certain areas. Then, of course, they wanted extra help. The library wasn't open or anything of that nature. We had the kids in 10th, 11th, and 12th in all those areas, which was more than enough, and we were blessed with a beautiful day. And our 10th, 11th, and 12th are just used to being outdoors and are used to using 35 minutes to talk amongst themselves and relaxing. Okay? And Russ will share some of that if he wishes regarding it. Our ninth graders weren't used to that sort of thing, and they usually don't go outside. You see that as a 10th and 11th and 12th grade privilege, and that's something we're going to have to talk about as administrators and teams to see on nice days whether they too can go out. What we envisioned with the ninth graders is going from the north campus, they wish, down the hallway into gym 5, 6, and have that hallway as a hallway of the corridor to connect, a bridge to connect both of the areas. We also see where halfway through a period, kids are going to go up to their science lab, and kids are going to go down. If kids need extra help, we'll see that work. In other schools, it occurs organically. It comes about naturally. It was imposed on Friday. It really was.
Next year you would have, you'd have like a writing lab and help in all the departments? Is that how you?
Not necessarily so.
Okay.
Okay. That's a free time for the kids and for the teachers. It's up to the teachers if they want kids up to do something, if they want a meeting. That's not going to be imposed. That should come out of it naturally. Okay? The teachers need a time to offer it. Guidance will be open, so kids can drop in guidance. The library will be open, so kids can drop in to the library and do work if they so desire. Not to eat in here, but to do work in here. But we don't foresee extra help unless the teacher wants it. It says, unless he or she says, stop by, halfway through the lunch, and we can develop a pass system where the student can go. We do not want the students wandering all over, okay, because we have only so many supervisors.
Sure.
I know it was a tough thing to do, but I also know there seemed to be some confusion, at least when I got with kids, not really knowing what to do, even though it may have been talked about. So I don't think that helped a lot as far as maybe the movement of students and everything. I also heard there were a lot of kids sitting on floors and things like that, and I'm not sure, if everybody could see everything that really went on or not. And I know the other thing was the gym stuff, they were told, go out and come right back, because they were afraid of kids cutting classes. So, there were probably some other things too, but it's obviously going to have to work itself out. But, and the other thing I just wanted to, there was a concern from some board members at Greenbrook about whether the fire marshal had to look at the seating or something, and I don't know where that came from, or just because I know there's some kids in school there too, but is that something that, in terms of routing or exits or that should be looked at some point, when you start to actually get set up and do this, just to make sure that there's no issues with, occupancy and routing and exits and things like that?
Absolutely.
That would be correct. That whole plan would be shared with the fire marshal prior to implementation.
That'd be good.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? If not, we can move on to the student representative, Russ.
Well, we're going to have a blood drive on Thursday. I'm pretty excited about that. I'm trying to get involved.
Congratulations.
And then last Wednesday, we had Dr. Terrence Roberts come speak about his experience at Overlock High School, where he was executive, and I loved that. I thought it was an amazing experience. He had a really good vocabulary. It was interesting. Very big words and everything. He had a little trouble pronouncing Washington.
He got it down by nighttime.
Towards the end of the day, he was getting it. But yeah, it was great listening to him. It was a really good experience, really hearing about something that has in history from a hands-on perspective. I really enjoyed it, especially because I love history and all that. And I was talking about it with two Marshals in my class before, so it was really good to get that. And then next Monday, we have our election speeches for student government. And then we've got voting of our next Tuesday. Yeah, that's all we have for now.
Any comments on the lunch on May 3rd?
The lunch,
Were you here?
I wasn't here on
Okay.
Friday, but I went and I talked to people during lunch, not just my friends. I talked to other people in other grades and everything. Freshmen, I didn't really hear much, but in general, I know that I went over to Dr. Jansen today, but a lot of kids did leave school that day for lunch. I know that is true. And then, but I had that people who stopped. Also, it was kind of clicky because it was so big that you just go with like your one little group. Whereas usually in lunch, you just kind of find people that you kind of know and then you become good friends with them. So in a way, it kind of like the regular lunch you have, it like breaks down walls. But it's good where you can see all your friends at the same time. You're not meeting new people. And also, and I guess a big concern people were worried about eating in the wintertime when they couldn't go outside. But aside from that, nothing really jumped out.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions? All right, with that, we can move on. By the way, giving blood is not that hard. Russ, giving blood is not that hard to do. It's really not. We can move on to committee reports now. We'll start. Rob, I don't think finance not met. Personnel, I don't believe met. We'll start with negotiations. Do you have anything you want to add here, or is it all for executive section?
Just for executive.
For executive section. Lou is not able to join us tonight for medical reasons, but Jerry's going to give the building and grounds report.
We met on May 29th. Dr. Rader was present, Tim Size, John Suarez, Paul was there, myself, Pete Valderano, and Lou was there. At the meeting, we were introduced to John Suarez, and for those of us on personnel, we had met him, other people had not. So as we went through the meeting, we brought John up to speed on a number of different items that were going on, and just catching him up on some of the issues that the D&G committee was working on. Don Fiore was there. We talked about the tile floor bids. They were scheduled to go out that week. The bid openings are scheduled for June 13th, and hopefully that's still on schedule. And then that would mean the bid completion would have a completion date of August 13th. So we're still optimistic that if everything works out, we'll go ahead with the floor this summer. We also talked about a water leak at the underground fire loop that was scheduled to be repaired very quickly, or soon anyway. The pit lift is still moving forward, and Don's working with John Malone of DCA to work on getting this resolved. There's still questions and answers that are going back and forth.
What does that mean that the pit lift is going forward?
The DCA has concerns about understanding and having the right language and questions answered as far as what levels you can operate it at So it's been taking a long time to get engineers involved that could explain it in a way that DCA is happy with. And so far, we haven't been very successful in getting DCA to sign off on operation other than the way it is right now.
Well, it's pretty, my understanding, it's clear they're not going to let kids or anyone be in the lowest position. Is that true?
We broke it in two parts. The top level, which is the stage level, and the next level, which is the floor level, because there's no egress issue there.
Right.
Then the lower level, which has to do with, well, we know there's a known egress issue. We're not trying to deal with that one right now. We're trying to get the top level and the middle level set so that we can lock it in position, in either one of those two positions, and they will allow students or people to be on it in those two positions.
Are they saying even in the top level to the second level that they're not going to allow people to be on it when it's going from the highest, the stage level to the floor level?
There's no movement. If you're not allowed to be on it when it's moving. That's
sure.
Yeah.
What about the issue? This has really concerned me since the whole thing was done. Is the bolting of the chairs onto that pit lift? The quote temporary chairs, or sorry, the movable chairs. Is that being looked? I understand, but it's a separate issue.
It would be looked at, but right now, you're right. That's not on the top of the list of things. We're just trying to get so we can use it in those two positions.
No, I understand, but when this originally was, before you were here, Paul, remember, friend, the issue was going to be to have easily removable chairs. What do they have? 100 chairs on it?
A little more than that.
Okay, 100 and something. And the problem, we all know, they are not removable other than with, a pneumatic,
They have to be removed with
tool.
Yeah.
So, and then if you remove them, you have about, 500 holes in the pit lift. So, I mean,
Easily.
right, whatever it is, it'd be very unattractive. So I think that's really an issue that needs to be resolved. I mean, even if it means taking all the chairs off, and sanding it so that you could use it without, and to what extent could truly portable, removable system be placed on top of that?
Good comment. Yeah, we've not really addressed that particular item in terms of this. It's been just a nightmare to try to get the Joyce Dayton calculations, DCA comfortable with the calculations, and then willing to sign off on it. And that's been just the real focus of even getting that little first step. Don's talked about some ideas that he had. Well, he talked about it. Says he had some ideas for the egress issue in the lower level, but we haven't got to that. It's been just trying to get that first bridge crossed. But it's a good point that you raised, and it's probably what we need to talk about too at D&G.
With the chairs, I mean, is it ever possible we would use the chairs there and get approval to have people sitting there with the chairs in place? Is that
That's what we're trying to get approval for right now.
so then we might not necessarily want.
No, but the whole point is it's
So
an
if we had-
extender of the
I
stage.
know,
So you don't want,
I know.
you're not going to have people sitting as, where the stage extended. That's the whole point.
Be a little up close and
Hey.
Well,
What?
Be a little up close and personal.
Well, that's,
Well, but-
maybe those
but
are,
you're
we could charge all of $6 for those seats.
Well, there are times you might want the extra seat, and times you might want.
That's
the
right.
space.
That's right.
No, but that's right, and that's what we're talking about. As it is now, they're not portable. That's the issue that I was bringing up with Jerry. They're permanent, is what they are, bolted into that wood.
Right. It's a fair thing to bring back and make sure we talk about in the B&G. That doesn't get lost. We have some more issues that we talked about in B&G. One of them, actually, there are sewer issues. We spent a lot of time talking about them, and there's some items on the agenda this evening, D8 and D9, that relate to these problems. The committee talked about it at length and fully supported these two resolutions being placed on the agenda and move forward. There's also a resolution D10 that looks to go out for bidding on electrical contractor that we could have available should extra work be needed that is beyond what our staff is capable of doing. In particular, electrical service for the new sound system and the power needed for equipment for the new lunch areas. 2 more items. The plans were picked up from DCA for the TV studio hallway. And Don, once he has these, hopefully he does now, he can start working on a bid spec so we can move forward in finalizing that particular area. And then Lou also has a note here, the last one, that he'd appreciate if we could recognize Russ Teller somehow for the superb job he did filling in as a kind of interim director of operations. You know, now we have John here, but Russ said he gets carried a lot of that weight on his shoulders. Lou's noticed he handled everything that was thrown at him over the past few years, and he did so with the utmost professionalism and integrity. So he's kind of looking to see if somehow we could acknowledge that. And that's my report.
Any questions?
Sure.
Jerry, the discussions on D8 and D9, to what extent did they get into what it might cost, not for the engineering, but for the work?
There were estimates provided.
As I recall, both of them came to about
It's over $100,000.
each. Is that
No,
combined?
combined.
If you want, there's actually the one having to do with the sewage system is $50,000, his rough estimated construction cost, and that doesn't include the actual engineering and other fees. That's a separate.
But that's the 13,000 that we're
Yes,
doing.
that's the 13,000 that you're seeing for that. And the other one, depending on what happens, there's 2 different possibilities. One is,
I'm sorry, the first one you said was sewers, but they're both wrong. I'm a little confused.
well, one was the sewer line and one is the shack, I think. It's
One
tied to a
says
sewer.
it's the transportation building, the other says
Right,
it's
the
the
transportation building is $50,000 estimate with the 13,000. The other one is to tie in the waste from the shack into the sewer system. So I call it a shack, but it's tying to a sewer system, and then depending on, it would be a minimum of $25,000 in the estimate for the actual tie-in, unless there's actually a pump needed, which could add another $35,000. So we'll know more, I think, when he's done with his work.
And the thought, just so you understand, the thought is also, if we're going to be down there digging, is to have pipes that are large enough to handle potential bathroom in that area, too, as well.
Well, my question in terms of the roughly 100,000 or so, is this something we're going to try and is there a way to get it into the current budget, or are we looking into next year's budget? If we're looking in next year's budget, what funds are
Glad you
we
asked that question.
looking to earmark?
Right now, one of the other items on the agenda, and I'd have to bring it up with Finance Committee as well, is we're accepting extraordinary aid of $75,000. That extraordinary aid is,
In which budget year?
we're accepting it right now.
This current.
It can be used in this year's budget or next year's budget. It's our choice. That's part of that funding that's going to be used. And we're going to have to find the balance in other areas. I would like to earmark it at least in this year's budget if I could, because next year it's a little tighter.
Well, my question was, do we have a timeline if we're just starting the engineering now to get the work into this year?
The timeline is going to be more dependent on approvals. It could take up to 4 months to get the approvals done.
Kind of hard to keep it in this year's budget.
Very difficult to keep it in this year's budget. Outside of the engineering fees, which I can,
We get all this work done this year.
but this is something we have to work through the Finance Committee to come up with exactly how we're going to handle it.
And that $75,000 grant, that's a special ed grant?
It stems from the applications from
For the
special
excess
education.
40,000,
That's correct.
but there's no restrictions.
There's no restrictions on that.
Goes in the general fund.
Thank you. And Jerry, I'm sorry, you also got the similar sort of question regarding the electrical work that we're having done. Do we know the magnitude of that?
No, this is simply to go out to put on like a professional service where you'd have somebody available at a certain rate that you know, it's not to do a specific project, but it's really to have somebody on board that you can reach out to if it's
Time and material based.
Thank you. Time and material based, thank you.
Any other questions? With that, we can move on to, thank you, sir. Did you have anything else, sir? I presume-
No, that was it. I don't know about if you want to talk about maybe under, or if you want to leave it at the administration
I was
to try to think about
I think
it.
we
Prepare
need to-
something for the
I
next
think we should
meeting.
administration,
Okay.
think about that and talk it over with the personnel committee. Okay. With that, we'll move on to, I don't think there's a curriculum committee. I think there was a co-curricular committee, but
Mr. Palzarano was the only board member at that
he's
meeting.
not here.
I missed that there.
Lou was there, so.
Both were
So
there.
the two people, so we're going to have to defer that till next time. Unless you want to be at the meeting?
Yes, I was. The topics were the opt-out resolutions that are on tonight's board agenda, and also the approval of the summer weight room program, which had not been, we could not find that it had been approved prior to this time. And the committee took positions strongly supporting the summer weight program and mixed reactions to the opt-out program.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to, thank you. We'll move on to policy, first of all, policy and regulations does not meet. We are meeting on Wednesday of this week. And we should have some policies, at least one policy for you for next meeting. We're slogging through some very difficult policies right now. Community and business relations, I believe, did meet.
We did meet, we met on May 28th, and I also wanted to pass around a letter I got from the Veterans Administration thanking us for visiting and for the items and for the community involvement. Also, there was because the student sent that the Terrence Roberts presentation was last week, and that was just phenomenal. I mean, the Wyman family, subsidized that program, and I thank them for doing that. One of the things that I just wanted to mention that I took out of that program was one of the things he said was he was able to deal with the threatening situation of going to school at a high school every day where, he was one of 9 black students in a segregated white southern school, was the nurturing that he received in the years prior to that at school, that he always felt loved and supported at school, and that was one of the things that he talked about, getting him through that time, which I thought was just an amazing thing to hear. So that was a great presentation. Anyway, community and business relations. We had a representative from the Honeywell security system come, Joe Kaiser. Am I pronouncing that right? Gosh, okay. And what the program is we'll be able to send notices out to students and parents in any format that they want to receive it, via phone, via text message. I believe email is one of them. And families can sign up for however many messages they want to receive, how they want to receive them, and then we on our end can break it out in any direction, like if we want to, break it out by grade level, by department, even by teacher, I believe. I don't think there's any restrictions. So it's a very, very useful program that could really help keep the school informed in many ways. And it seems like a great program, and I'm glad to see that move forward. We also discussed a potential benefactor that wants to donate to the athletic area, and we're in desperate need of a new track. So Nick Saratello was there, and Tim, and I know Fran has also been working on that, and Bob Rader, and I think that would be a great thing for our school to have that situation. We discussed the calendar, and one of the things that we discussed was President's Week, that if ever there's an opportunity in next year's plan, and the way Christmas falls out, we don't really have extra days. But if there is ever an opportunity where we do have extra days, where we could get a full week off, we talked about saving on heating costs and also, helping, in planning vacation time. Also, I had gotten some concerns from the community about events being scheduled over the Jewish holidays, things like exchange students and things like that. So that's something that we're looking to be sensitive to. And we discussed the debit card. And right now there's a drawing for an iPhone if students sign up for $20 as a debit card, which will carry through to next year. So if anybody has students, in the schools, a nice little bonus to be in a drawing for an iPhone. And, we'll have a good sense, I guess, in the next meeting or so as to, how much that increased our response. And we also talked about, Tim reaching out more to the districts that have been successful with the debit cards, which I know you have been doing. And, getting that rolling. And then we also discussed having some green initiatives next year, in many ways, with, maybe some of the clubs and, some other things happening here at the school. What we discussed.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, with that, we move on to the first presentation.
Okay.
Which one do you want to introduce?
We're just choosing it out.
I'm not sure how long Transact's going to be able to stay here.
Brian, thank you very much for coming tonight to talk with the board and the community about the proposed Physics 2 course that we'd like to offer that you're going to be shepherding next year. So, thank you.
Good evening, administration and board. If anybody needs the proposal for the Physics 2, I have extra copies. They should be in your packets. If you need extra copies, pass those around. First, thank you for recognizing all those students that have earned significant achievements and awards in the past year on their national and statewide science exams. Just an amazing group of students that we have here at Watchung Hills. I'll give you a brief history of how the Physics 2 course came about. We've, over the past couple of years, have discussed introducing a second-year non-calculus, non-AP physics course to mirror the biology and chemistry sequence so that seniors have an elective to take a physics specialty course. And this would meet the needs of all of our motivated, science-minded students. In the past, many students have wanted a senior option to continue studying physics, but no course existed. The reorganization and renaming of integrated science to Physics K also created a need for those students to have a second option. Since many of those students took Physics J after integrated science, they wouldn't have the option of taking Physics J1 after Physics K. So having a Physics 2J course would give them an option for further study. The concepts that we plan on teaching in Physics 2J would basically continue where Physics 1J leaves off, at rotational kinematics, relativity, simple harmonic motion, thermodynamics, waves and optics, circuitry, and E&M. It will be a lab-based course, and it will, be primarily hands-on with, appropriate for the math skills of algebra and pre-calc students. Again, it won't be a calculus course. This is not intended to diminish the AP physics course that we have in calculus. Certainly, the students that have the calculus background will still be encouraged to take the AP physics. This is for the remaining seniors that don't have calculus and would still like to pursue studying physics their senior year. Currently, we have 25 students in the system that have signed up for the course, which is pretty incredible because it wasn't an option during sign-up time. It wasn't on the books at that point. Between 35 and 45 have expressed interest, so we need to go through and sort out the schedule with those students and make sure that all the guidance counselors are aware that this is the appropriate option for students that have taken the integrated science that they should be put into the Physics 2 course instead of the Physics J course, which probably several of them are enrolled in. So I'll leave time to answer any questions that you have about the course.
Ross, just currently, in terms of physics courses, what do we have? What curriculum? We have
a Physics J, and traditionally now these are junior classes, so the freshmen take biology, the sophomores have chemistry, and the juniors in the J and H level take physics. The K level take integrated science.
So right now, if you're a junior, you can take Physics J or Physics Honors?
Or Physics H, right.
Is the difference between Honors and J just an issue of pace, or is there sort of quantitative skill difference?
There's a quantitative skill difference. The Physics H course is more based on mathematical modeling of physics, whereas the Physics J course is more conceptually based. We also use trig and the algebra skills and try to reinforce those, but it's not an introduction to calculus, whereas the Physics H, we either talk about calculus ideas if the kids have had it, or introduce those ideas so that when they see it.
So right now, junior year, you have these two tracks.
Right.
And then right now, the only senior track available is AP Physics?
That's correct.
So if a student has sort of interest in it, but the difference between physics, 2J and AP Physics is also not just a pace difference, but a qualitative difference, more math with the AP
right.
Physics.
Right.
Do you have kids who, well, I would say successfully, in any event, kids who pass, who take Physics J as a junior, who then take Physics AP?
Absolutely.
How do they generally do compared to the kids who then were in honors as juniors and then take, AP as a senior?
They certainly have a more difficult time of it at first, but many of those students make that leap because they are in calculus concurrently with their AP physics course. So those students, I'd say, of the 30 to 40 students in AP Physics, between 5 and 7 are coming from the Physics J course. So there's a small number of students that are able to make that jump, and it's appropriate for them if they're taking calculus at that point.
I guess also, I hear you say, but if a student, if they're not their strength, physics and math, then at least, from perspective of, applying to college, we're all concerned that at least they, can see there's a substantive science, for the senior year instead of just taking another course. I assume that'd be a benefit as well?
Absolutely. It's just another option for students that have developed an interest in physics rather than biology and chemistry to take a second year science course.
If a kid takes, if we do the senior program for Physics 2J for seniors, would you discourage kids, I guess, from taking the AP, or is there, because the AP Physics is pretty heavy on math?
Absolutely.
Would it be a little more surprising than not, a kid who's a B+ student in the senior Physics J class, for that kid to get a 4 or 5, would that be pretty surprising to you?
Not for a motivated kid.
Really?
As long as they're comfortable with the calculus ideas, having the Physics J or Physics H background will help them in AP Physics.
Let's get to somebody else ask questions. Laura, you had a question, I think?
No, I guess it's more of a comment. So it just seems to me that someone who's going to be taking Physics K would not presumably move on to Physics 2 unless they did it, had a stellar year.
Well, it's between 15 and 20% of our integrated science students opt to take Physics J as a senior. So we're hoping that roughly the same percentage would be interested in continuing physics. But right now, the integrated science is evolving towards a physics curriculum. So to take the integrated science and then Physics J is a little repetitive. So this gives them another option. I think that the same students that would be interested in taking that Physics J course would take the Physics 2J course as seniors.
So can it be paced in such a way that, you know, the Physics K kids can follow, but yet the upper level kids, are challenged too?
Absolutely. The topics have a wide scope of the degree of difficulty that you can go into, and as a senior elective, the teachers will be aware that it is an elective course. These are students that don't have to take a science to complete their science years of credit to graduate, and we'll gear the course accordingly.
I think it's a great option for the kids.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, you had a question?
First, Brian, I want to thank you for working on the proposal, bringing to us, and then I want to turn to Dr. Rader, because I'm not sure I should be asking you and our BA or Brian, if we get the 45 cellular students interested in this, have we addressed how this is going to be staffed and the impact that's going to have on the budget with respect to whether we'll need another teacher or not?
Karen, could you come over to the mic, because we are videotaping. I'm sorry to make you have to walk all the way over there.
Walking is my friend. Basically, how this would work, since the students would be in a course, and a lot of them would be in a science course, and we're talking about 45 students, so simply it would be a matter of sectioning, that we would be able to accommodate the teaching section with our existing complement of teachers without having to add a .2 or something of that nature. So it's not going to really have any budget implications.
So we looked at it and we can fit in the extra sections with our existing staff. Thank you, Fran.
Any other questions? Bob,
I just wanted to quickly, in terms of, or Fran or Tom knows this, if you know it, Ridge High School, Montgomery, Bridgewater, which are, the better schools in our district, do they offer this?
No, I don't know the answer to that question. I can make one up for you, but
I think independent of that, for all the reasons you've stated, and what Fran says, it doesn't, there's no additional staffing, and it just gives I think kids who were hoping to apply to, especially separate from the love of learning, but it's also important for those kids who want to apply to the highly, very competitive colleges that certainly physics I think look especially if you do well on it looks pretty good on their resume.
Maybe Tom and Brian could give us some information by Friday and we can respond to the board and include that.
Can I ask you one question? Sure. You mentioned the integrated science is moving more towards physics, and we were offering a 2J physics course. I'm just curious, why is it moving towards physics? Where's chemistry in the mix on this, and why are we moving integrated science more towards chemistry, which is perhaps an introduction more to physics?
Well, the students have, the students, the sophomores would all have chemistry. They would either have the ChemCom or ChemJ or ChemH class. So they have a full year of chemistry before integrated science.
Right. But why wouldn't you go and move towards introducing physical chemistry concepts into a integrated sciences curriculum in addition to the physics material? I mean, I'm just curious as to why that wouldn't become a natural part of that.
After they have the chemistry?
Yeah, physical chemistry. You go into physical chemistry concepts, which is, you don't have to get into calculus. I'm just a thought.
When I take a look at the state standards for physics and eventually the end of the year test that will come down the pipe for both chemistry and physics, it's really not it's not a physical chemistry based exam.
So that was your comment?
Yeah, what's happening when the integrated science course was developed 5, 6, 7 years ago, it had in mind the HESPA that would have been given to the junior, which would include, we thought at that time, biology, chemistry, physics. With that not in mind now, the question is we may be hitting towards a physics region type.
So this is all testing driven, basically.
I think integrated science was originally set up as testing driven.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Laura?
No, I mean, just a comment I want to make. prior to this year, we never had a physics K. So I think the other sciences all have a K level. So if you're a K level and you want to take physics, then were forced, your only option was to take integrated science. So this does give the kids more options.
Okay. Jerry, you had a question?
Yeah, I just, I like what you've done here, but the course description did say, the course outline did say reference to the corresponding core curriculum standards. I didn't see any of that. I wondered if that's something that could be or should be added to it. Kind of maybe useful.
Yeah, I thought that we had added the
Well, you have the topic,
curriculum.
which, the unit titles, which I see, but I didn't see where it's related to the standards.
No, you're right. One of the versions had those state core curriculum standards detailed. I can get those to you.
Maybe we get a copy of that.
Yeah, can we get those?
To distribute to the board.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just have a comment back. I'm currently in physics right now. I'm in physics J. I know there's a huge need between physics J and physics H. Like, I've seen kids plotting orbit of Mars, and I have no idea what's going on. So I think physics J is a really good course. I enjoy it a lot. I'm doing well in it. And physics 2J would be a good course because, like, I know a lot of kids that want to continue doing physics, but they don't want to go in 8 days because, like, their teachers strongly caution them. This is a lot more work. It's a lot more intense. You're going to have to make up a little bit of stuff that you can miss. So I think had I known about the course when I did my schedule, I would definitely be taking this course because it's a good way to continue that science background and it's a good way to continue doing physics and science. I think it's a good course.
Thanks, Russ. It's still early. You can change.
Any other questions at this time?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to, you can introduce the CSEC.
Sure, I would like to introduce this one. We're having a presentation this evening, which includes Dr. Stromslin, Bev, DiGeronimo, Tim, and Dr. DeGanchi on New Jersey CUSAC, and woven into that discussion will be the CUSAC standards that are affected by the opt-out resolutions which will follow.
Thank you, Dr. Rader.
Pleasure to introduce you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Stromslin.
Actually, Mr. Size and Dr. DeGanci are our silent partners in this presentation. They are very critical to the data gathering team, so we did not want to leave them out as part of the key members of the discussion. Actually, if you can believe this, I had the original date on my presentation when we looked at it on, I guess it was Thursday or Friday last week, was March the 3rd. That's when I intended to present this to you. But, we had various personnel issues and other things of importance to bring before the board, and then I, unfortunately was out for a bit. So I think we're still very timely and we're right on target in terms of our work that we're doing in preparing for the NJCUSAC. We are in the queue, of course, for next year, which would mean that by November the 15th, this board would need to approve the resolution to submit the CUSAC report to the state, and then we would be receiving a report of findings sometime in the spring of '09. So we are not the first set of districts in Somerset County to go through CUSAC. We are in the second batch. The results for our regional elementary district did very well, and we are also hopeful that we will do well. So I'm going to let Bev lead off, and hopefully I won't mess up doing this clicker thing. The one on the right. Oh, good. So far, so good.
Yeah. As you know, NJCUSAC has 5 major areas, and they're called the District Performance Review Areas. They're listed here: instruction and programs, fiscal management, operations management, personnel, and governance. To the right, we have the total number of points that will be ascribed to each of those 5 areas. For example, instruction and program is based upon 111 points. Fiscal, personnel and governance, each 100, with operations management expanding to 120 total points. There are many indicators under each of these 5 major areas, and there are subclassifications of points, all totaling the total number that you have here. On the right and in red we have the guidelines that we need to follow. We need to amass 80% of each of the total number of points ascribed to each of the 5 DPRs. So, for example, 80% of 111 points for instruction and program equals 88.8. The other ones are relatively obvious. With operations management at a total of 120, we need to amass 96 points. Now, for each of the sub-numbers and groups of indicators under each of these, you either get the points or you don't get the points. You can't subtract a point here or 2 points there, etc. So you either meet the sub-indicators or you don't. Okay. Once we do our self-assessment, and we will have subcommittees for each of these DPR groups, we submit it to the county, and they do an on-site visit, and they decide if the numbers we have given to ourselves on the self-assessment instrument are actually what they're finding when they come here and ask for verification of what we say exists here in our district. Now, if we achieve 80% to 100% satisfaction of each DPR, we are then called a high-performing district and receive that recognition from the commissioner. We also get a 3-year certification that we are providing a thorough and efficient education. It's good for 3 years. If we get between 50% and 79% satisfaction in one or more DPR area, then we go into an improvement plan that has to be approved by the commissioner. The commissioner reviews that improvement plan, checking for progress every 6 months, and may use something called HSP, highly skilled professionals, for technical assistance if the rapidity of improvement is not keeping pace with what the commissioner feels is appropriate. If any district gets less than 50% satisfaction in one or more of the DPR areas, then a whole series of events takes place, and this is just a very, very brief overview. The DOE then conducts an in-depth evaluation. There is very close scrutinizing and monitoring of the improvement plan that, again, has to be submitted, designed by the district and then submitted to the commissioner for approval. Highly skilled professionals, HSP, come in, and there can be, not necessarily, but depending upon the severity of the deficit, the state can appoint a superintendent to come in and oversee all of this. And there would be state intervention on a very, very high level.
So basically, our next step in this process will be to develop our district self-assessment committee. And we've listed for you here the members of this district self-assessment committee, which would be, of course, myself as a superintendent, business administrator, Board of Education members. We'd like to have 2, if that would be agreeable to you. We'd like to have 2 volunteers, a teacher, the principal, our director of curriculum instruction, a representative from the WHRHS, and a parent or community representative. So that is the group. They will meet approximately 3 times, and what their function will be to review the documentation and the assessment data that we've put together for each of the DPRs to see if they see the correlations and the documentation that it would stand up to outside scrutiny of the county executive superintendent and the various members of her team that she'll be bringing here. So I'm hopeful this evening that with Paul's help that we can identify 2 volunteers from the board who would be participating in that activity. And as I said, between the summer and fall, early mid-fall, we would probably be having about 3 meetings where we would be presenting the data that would be supporting evidence to the completion of the DPRs as you see in each of the 5 areas that are listed. What's happened thus far is that we have met with the Executive County Superintendent for Somerset County, who is Trudy Doyle, met with her in May, to advise her of the schedule, anticipated timelines and progress that we will be making toward completion of CUSAC. Tonight, June the 2nd, we are having our overview presentation about CUSAC to you all here at our board meeting. Then, hopefully, we'll also this evening or soon afterwards be able to appoint the self-assessment team, the DPR review committee. And then what we've been doing right along, really as this whole year has progressed, we've had an eye on the DPRs, an eye on the various elements that make up the DPR, the various point values, and to try to get some sense of where we stand now in terms of how we would fare. Now, we won't actually know how we stand up with those point values until we really sit down and put the paperwork in front of us and start doing our tallies and see what we're missing. But you see, the margins are fairly small. We don't have a lot of wiggle room with point values. It is fairly narrow. This data collection and the review has been ongoing as well. However, I must tell you, it will kick into high gear this summer once we complete the school year, and we'll focus a lot of attention and energy on the documentation and the data collection to support the work that we're doing to meet the standards of the DPR. Any questions thus far?
Now, this sheet kind of summarizes where we're going with this. Each DPR area, as we indicated before, is value weighted. One area is worth 3 areas are worth 100 points, another area is worth 120, and then there's another area worth 111 points. We will have this self-assessment review committee that will recommend initially the point value achieved for each of the indicators and the sub-indicators in each of the 5 DPR areas. That will go to the county reviewers who come, well, it'll go there before they come here, so they'll have a chance to review it. They'll do an on-site visit, they will ask for various kinds of documentation, and we will need to provide that for them. They will decide at that time the point value that they are willing to ascribe to us. The final scores will be discussed with the district self-assessment review committee and the county reviewers, and then we do get a final report, as Fran indicates, and I think it's going to come out from the commissioner, who will place us on the continuum in January. Okay? But a more detailed report will follow in the spring.
Okay. Can I just get a clarification? You use the term self-assessment review committee, and in all the CUSAC literature, they refer to a district performance review committee. Are they the same thing?
Yes.
Can we change our name back to district performance review committee so I don't get confused in the future?
We can. When you go to meetings, they talk about the self-assessment committee, and the same question arises when you're at the meeting in the county. So they're flipping back and forth. And actually, the self-assessment committee is a better descriptor, but
wherever they fell, I just want to be consistent so that we all know what that term means.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You want to do this one?
I believe in the packet that you received with the blue notes, you got a sample performance indicator. I think you got the instruction and program indicator for curriculum. And what we are going to do this evening is we're just going to take a few of the elements of those subsets of under B in curriculum to discuss a little bit about some of the things that we'll be looking for and some of our concerns relative to going forward with the opt-out program the way it currently is configured here. The model that we are using is basically a little different than any of the models that we have been able to identify across the state and even in Somerset County. So what we'll do is maybe Bev will take us through a couple of those indicators, and we'll go and try to explain how we have concerns about some of those full point values being able to be awarded using the model we currently have.
Again, with this particular document that you have, the curriculum is pages 14 through 18, so it looks like this. Okay? If you notice, under curriculum, it has the 9 basic areas that address the New Jersey core curriculum content standards, starting with the arts and ending with career education. If we look at number 1, the District Board of Education has annually approved written curriculum that clearly and specifically aligns with the most recent State Board adopted version of the core curriculum content standards. Now, just so you understand what happens here, there are 3 points ascribed for all of those 9 areas. So in order to get 3 points in this one section, we have to say yes to all of those content areas. Okay? If we flip over to the second page, particularly indicator number 2, the district requires and verifies that the curriculum for each of the core curriculum content standards areas, and that's those listed vertically on the side, is fully implemented at all grade levels and uses a monitoring process for continually improving curriculum implementation. In order to achieve those 3 points, we need to be able to say yes to all of those areas again that are listed. Looking at number 3, it follows in the same format. But looking at the opt-out, I also want to draw your attention to the last page, number 7. The district implements a planned, systematic approach to key curriculum and developmental transition points between and among building levels. And the examples are given. Since we are a one-building facility here, grades 9 through 12, we have to show transition between grades 9 to 10, 10 to 11, and 11 to 12. So, and again, that gives us 1 point out of a total of 14 for this one particular sub-indicator under program and instruction. Okay?
Any questions on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to relate to the opt-out. So the questions that you highlighted are the ones that you have concerns about
Yes.
then from an opt-out standpoint? Is that right?
The documentation.
So question 7,
7, 2, and 3, I believe, also.
2, and 3.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Can you explain to me what you think about our program doesn't allow you to answer yes to number 7?
We feel that there's a problem
Then
in
you have to go on
providing
here.
documentation that they would want to see in order to have an opt-out program as to how we document that those standards are implemented when students have the ability to opt out of the physical education.
What standards specifically?
Well, the standards that relate to health and physical education as they progress from grades 9 through 12. I don't have them listed for you here. That would be part of the data review that we're going to actually collect.
Okay, I appreciate we don't have them here tonight, and the purpose is not to fully beat this one to death tonight, but I've got to tell you, I don't understand 2 and 3 either, how you could have any possible question that we don't meet those standards. And so I'm going to need you to educate me as to what the problem is, why you don't think you can answer yes to that question with respect to health, phys ed and health for those other things. It seems to me like we're in a situation where we're trying to find a reason to say our opt-out doesn't work and we have to get away from it. And I don't think that should be the focus of what we're doing. I think we should be focusing on how do we fit it within, if it does fit within, what's required by the state.
I'm sure that's how it appears, but that is really not what the focus is of what we're talking about. What we're talking about is knowing what we have in existence for all of our other programs and courses and requirements that students have and need, and that we can document clearly. We have some concerns whether we can do the same level of documentation in the area of health and physical education.
But let me just add on to that. Why about 9th grade or freshmen then would not be the same as 10th grade or 11th grade? Why opt out for any of the grade levels?
Well, that's part of the concern.
But
What we've done here, I think that's coming forward to you this evening from the co-curricular committee, is making the recommendation that the freshmen do not have the opportunity for opt-out, but that as 10th through 12th graders, they could have the opportunity to opt out of health and physical education.
it seems to me if it works for one, it works for all.
Well,
It doesn't
to
work
be
for
very
one.
honest with you, I would agree with that same logic. But coming forward from the committee, that was the recommendation that came forward.
But you could sign off if you get rid of freshman opt-out, you can then say 7 is net. I'm not sure I can make that.
7 would be clearer in terms of being able to document that the transition grade from 9th to 10th would not be impacted by the fact that the students were given the ability to opt out in grade 9.
But you would be challenged to make that same assertion for 10 to 11 and 11 to 12. I think that's the point that Jerry's...
Yes.
So
And all I'm
we
doing is trying to
saw,
highlight that to you. I'm not trying to persuade you one way or the other.
we solved some of the problems by reducing the opt-out in there. Can you go back to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Aren't there other ways to meet those requirements? Like if kids were to opt out, maybe they could get the information, in some web-based format. I know that was brought up at the last meeting.
That, I guess, is something we could consider and could be a possibility. However, it would be after the fact in terms of CUSAC. Because CUSAC is looking at us from this point back 2 years. So what we're doing is instituting a process if that's indeed what we decide to do going forward. And that would be a positive statement to make if we were to do something like that to the county superintendent, that the process moving forward would incorporate a range of options. So that would be something going forward.
Vernon, you had a question?
Well, it's more of a comment that, as you know, I've followed this opt-out thing pretty closely over the last few years. And I just want to tell the board members that when you go and look at the actual state standards, it uses terms like all students will do certain things. By the end of grade 12, students will do A, B, C, D, E. So when I read this last year, I said, there's some limited opt-out, whether it's limited to 1 a year or maybe a maximum of 6 over 4 years. I do believe that you could even describe our current program to make it very positive and make it acceptable. And I just want to take a few more minutes. I'm going to read one of them on motor skill developments. This is 2.5. Demonstrate mature, mechanically correct form and control when combining and modifying movement skills in applied settings. Use information from internal and external sources to detect, analyze, and correct errors in movement skills and patterns used in applied settings. Apply and analyze the use of momentum, force, and torque to enhance or change the performance of movement skills during physical activity. Transfer specialized movement skills that use similar patterns from one movement activity to another. Design and perform smooth flowing sequences with intentional changes in directions, flow, and speed, e.g., martial arts, line dancing, rollerblading, and swimming. Now, folks, have I not just described the marching band to you? Now, I'll go further. When I was in high school, I was in the marching band, and I played the tuba because nobody else would play. I'm a clarinet player, but I had to play the tuba. And I got to tell you that I could talk about more movement concepts, aerobic challenges of marching while you're blowing an instrument. And I got to tell you, if you have the right frame of mind, what we've done, I believe, does satisfy an awful lot of this. Now, it doesn't satisfy it every semester, but I do believe that it's not quite the sky is falling or it has fallen on us. I think that with the right mindset, we could describe what we've done and do a pretty good job of saying why it meets the state standard, especially when the state standard says by grade 12. And I'm very much in favor of the fitness course. I believe that the school should make it a mandatory course. Let's say by the time you're a junior, you have to take that fitness course. And I would even argue that from experience of my own kids, it's better to give that when they're a little older. They'll appreciate it a little bit more and probably retain it more after they leave this school. So for all those reasons, tonight, I think we should continue to allow band. I think we should allow one opt-out during 9th grade because I'll argue that that's the grade that's most difficult for kids. And that's when there are more of the 9th graders in all these other activities than any other year. There's a natural attrition. So I would say that the 9th grade is perhaps the most important year to do this, and then make it up in the later years when you allow a little bit less opt-out. So, I'm totally 180 degrees out of phase with the recommendation, but I hope I've convinced you that if you approach it with a positive frame of mind, I believe we can continue what we're doing, but you need people to recognize those positive aspects and write it up that way. And right from the beginning, I felt that there was maybe a prejudgment on this issue, and I'm speaking for the other side right now. So thank you for all your time, but that's what I was going to say later when we got to those other two items.
Preempted the opt-out.
Yeah, well, I've had my say on opt-out.
We won't have to hear it again in the opt-out.
I promise.
So we go back to CUSAC, because I really want to try, unfortunately, this opt-out discussion got wrapped into the QSAC. I really want to try to spend the time on the QSAC so we understand where we're headed with that. Because we have, just to remind you, till November the 15th, as a board, actually before that, to approve a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to want to have clear evidence of that it's been done effectively.
Please be assured that we do not have a predisposition or pre-mindset to exclusion, because obviously this is something that we've been raising concerns about for more than a year before we even were aware that we would be in QSAC monitoring. The idea that whether or not I am persuaded or Bev is persuaded or anyone particular here is persuaded is really not as important as all of the members of the district review team for the DPR can sign off with certainty that they believe that the documentation is clear, being met, and that indeed the county reviewers believe the same and would agree with it. So all I'm doing is putting forward to you the possibility that there could be some issues with that going forward.
Just a second. Let's move on to this.
One question though, because you said something before about 2 years. Did you mean that it's the current year plus 2 previous years?
Yeah, 2
That's
from
total of 3
2005.
years that you're going to be looking back. I just want to make sure, because I heard 2 years.
I'm sorry?
It's the current year plus 2 previous years in terms of meeting.
It's not a 3-year look back.
It is
This process involves 05, 06, 06, 07, 07, 08, documentation from those 3 school years.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's not, does not concern 08, 09 then? It only concerns the 3 prior years to what I'm involved in right now.
And notice also that you're only certified for 3 years, so essentially it's a yearly process because every 3 years you're going back 3 years. So it's a continuous cycle.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else here?
Onward.
Part of the reason why we brought this up even a year ago was that few schools throughout the state offer the opt-out program such as we have it without monitoring mechanisms. Schools with an opt-out program have not yet gone through the QSAC process, so we don't know how the interpretation will be. And again, county by county, I have an obligation as superintendent to make you aware of these concerns. Also, the instruction program, or B, the curriculum indicator, must be reviewed by independent sources. So for us to be convinced or try to put forward a point of view that we may believe is perfectly appropriate and accurate must be shared with the rest of the members who are going to be involved in that. Questions?
There are questions on QSAC. You have a QSAC question. Go for it, launch it.
Does that mean it doesn't matter what the board thinks, it only matters what the members of the district performance review think?
Absolutely not. The board has the final authority.
No, we do it. The board has
The board has authority to direct the superintendent to follow a certain model. That direction, however, may mean that indicator in QSAC is not met.
I disagree, though, that the board has the ability to approve or not approve the report. I'm not sure that's what the question was or not.
Well, the board has to approve the report, that's correct.
The board has to approve the report, but the board can approve part of the report and abstain and not approve other parts of it. That was one of the questions.
They can't go back and say change it.
No, we can't say back, but you cannot, but the board doesn't have to approve it.
Right.
And that was one of the questions in our QSAC training, for those of you who took it online. Maybe I got the question wrong.
I'm not sure.
We never got the answer.
Well, we can double check and verify your understanding.
But I do understand it to read that the board has to approve the report, but they can not approve sections of it. They don't have to approve all the indicators. So,
I have another question.
we never want time to figure that question out. Yes, Chair, that's right.
The other thing that you didn't touch upon, and maybe it's obviously a board decision as well, but whether you gave thought, because the board can have its own subcommittee though, not to help with, so I'm not sure, as an option that the board can have, to have a subcommittee for QSAC, and that's something I didn't know how to talk about, or whether, how to resolve that one or answer that one, or...
The board, according to the documentation, the board can establish a subcommittee to monitor the progress of and assist in the completion of the DPR.
Right.
That's the option of the board. We'll talk about that to see if the board wants to establish that subcommittee, and if we choose to, as board members, we can say, we're gonna have that. We'll be looking for volunteers, if people want to commit time to that. The other thing the board can do is the board does have the responsibility to establish the process and procedure for the operation of the DPR committee. So that's the committee is basically appointed by the CSA, which in this case is Dr. Strongly. And the board then can then set up the process and the procedures by which they would operate and in the reporting methodology by which we would expect them to follow. So we may ask you to come every day to talk to us about it, or more reasonably perhaps every month to give us an update.
If I might add just briefly to that, Paul, we said this morning that there may be a possibility, too, of incorporating the various DPRs into the existing committee structure that we have of the board, so that groups of members of the board who are involved in those areas would be more knowledgeable, perhaps, and perhaps more helpful in terms of guiding the process through that review.
And that may be that's good thing for bringing that up. There may be an approach that the board would rather take, that is, rather than creating yet another committee, have the individual sections be reviewed or worked with through the individual existing committees of the board. So the one that has to deal with instruction and program might be dealt with through the curriculum kind of committee. The one that deals with facilities might be dealt with more closely through the buildings and grounds. So we can have that discussion to figure out how we choose to have governance on this particular issue. So I'm sorry, with that we can.
And basically, just in closing, we'll be completing our self-study through the spring, summer, and probably even into the early fall. All of our documentation will be pulled together summer for all of 2008. The documents organized by DPR will be reviewed by the committee in October of 2008, and this review procedure will continue through the fall with our submission November 15th, pending the board's approval of the final document. Yes. That's it. Okay, it's a wrap.
Okay,
any other questions?
Before we leave this topic, I would be looking, the whole committee is going to be created in a short period of time. If the board has the responsibility to appoint its own members or have volunteers who want to volunteer to work on the DPR, the District Performance Review Committee. Can I just ask, who would be interested in volunteering for the DPR?
What kind of time commitment are you talking about, Fran?
About 3 meetings.
3 or 4
once
meetings
we have,
today,
as we
plus
begin to
reviews.
put the
Per month?
No.
Oh, no, in the scope. In other words, as we pull the data together for data review, we may call a meeting when we come to a point where it makes sense just to have a review at that point. We're thinking about approximately 3 meetings between, let's say, late summer, early fall, mid-fall.
It doesn't sound like it's very time-consuming.
We hope not to make it time-consuming for you. The time invested will be more on our
And
part.
you only want 2 board members to look at this stuff and offer comments?
Well, to be part of the whole review committee, not just separate from it.
It's part of the official DPR, which is the establishment. Remember, I expect that most of this information is going to be reviewed in advance of that by other people on the board and probably in the subcommittees or in the committee, however we choose to structure that part.
I'll be one of the people who can help in some way,
You want to volunteer?
whether it's a prior review or an official member of the pre-meeting committee. I'll help out some way.
Who wants to volunteer to the official? All I want to know now is the two volunteers for the official DPR committee.
I'll think about it. I mean, I'd like to
I will-
try, but
I will volunteer for it, but I will personally volunteer for it. But so I need one more. But if somebody else wants to do it, I'd be glad to.
You're perfect. One question I had before Mr. Binder is because we expect those meetings to be during the work day because most of the people are paid staff, correct?
no, I understand.
You do that, okay.
That's why I said I'd like to do it. I'd like to try, but if Paul's got a little better flexibility on scheduling, then that's probably better.
We'll see. I mean, for right now, I'll volunteer.
I'll try, but
And
Let me look at my schedule for...
Mr. Fallon has volunteered also.
and I'll throw my name in also.
No restriction.
Actually, only need 1 or 2 people.
So that's okay. That's all we need for the DPR. But the other thing is, and we'll be talking about probably at the next meeting, is the governance in that this board wants. And we can talk about a subcommittee to monitor it and set things up. Or we can talk about just trying to have it go through the existing committees. And I'll tell you, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not really interested in more committees. And I think anybody here around here is looking for any more work, but I do think that we want to make sure we stay close to this as a board, as it evolves. I mean, this is important for us. So.
I think your idea about the subcommittees, like there's a personnel one going through personnel and, operations management or fiscal going through finance and those things kind of make sense.
It may be the best way to deal with it. It's an existing governance structure, and we don't have to make it up as we go along. And plus, then it gets reviewed in areas where we have the most expertise in it. So we'll talk, if anybody has any other ideas, but we can finalize that at the next meeting, okay? All right. Any other things? Do you have anything else?
I think that's all. Until
Thank you.
next time.
Okay, thank you very much. That was the next time. We can bring a close to the reports and presentations, and we'll move on to the first opportunity for public comment. This comment period is limited to agenda topics that are on this agenda, and you have 5 minutes. If you choose to speak, please state your name and address. Be aware that there is another opportunity for the public to comment at the end of the meeting on anything. Does anybody want to bring anything forward at this time? Hearing none, we'll close the public comment period. I do not have anything on board discussion tonight. We've already covered most of it. It has to do with the board retreat. With that, we'll move on to action items. We have action items A1 through A7. A7 is on your walk-in items. It has to do with a mini football camp June 9th, June 9th, 11th, and 12th. Does anybody have any items on A1 through A7 that they would like to pull for separate votes? A1 and A2. All right, A1 and A2 are pulled. These have to do with curriculum items, and I've been advised that because they're curriculum, they require a majority of the full board. So I understand that's correct. Okay, so just everybody's aware of that, of the full board. But we'll pull A1 and A2. How about A through A7? Anybody have any of those that they'd like to pull for separate consideration? Can I get a motion on A3 through A7?
I will move A3 through A7. I can second that.
Any discussion on on A3 through A7?
I have a question for Tim. Tim, I thought the rules now didn't allow us to pay for trips within the state.
On this particular case, this is a track meet that was, students were selected basically last week. So we really didn't have proper notice from the NJSIAA. I essentially sent an email out to the county superintendent and asked the question that you're asking, plus the fact, can we do this before? Essentially said this is treated as a field trip. Get your board to approve it, even if it's after the fact. And because of this idea that we didn't have notifications, we didn't know who was going to go. We didn't know the 4 students who were selected until last week. So essentially what she said was get all the costs involved, try to limit it as much as possible, and we had about 5 or 6 emails going back and forth on how we can do exactly that. It was very difficult because it's in Egg Harbor, and the transportation piece was the hardest one to try to limit. But we feel that we did as good a job as we possibly could under the circumstances. The county superintendent gave a blessing to move forward as long as we board approved it after the fact, like we're doing right now.
And I'd like to amend my motion with respect to A6 to indicate that you've discussed this with the county executive superintendent, that this is as per that person's recommendation.
That's putting them on the. It's been suggested that we modify A6 per what Peter just said. Does the person who seconded have any disagreement with that? No. All right, so it's been modified as such. Any other questions on A3 through A7? Yes, sir.
Tim, when you're done writing, I just have a question on A3 for Dr. Rader. What's the amended application for? Why is it for 07 amended application?
know the answer.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know.
Don't know the answer.
So what are we actually approving? We submitted, we got the funds for 07, didn't we? Isn't that what we're approving under funds?
Fran, the IDEA application we know is amended.
Do we have to do it tonight?
Don't know the answer to that. I don't believe there will be a restriction.
There's never a requirement that,
Has it been submitted or not?
No, we wouldn't submit it until
Because it
you
says
approve it.
approved is sufficient, it might have been submitted, I don't know.
Now, we have to certify on the application itself that the board has approved it, but we can always put down that you will approve it at the next meeting if you would want to hold till we gave you that.
Well, I don't know,
Is
if
that
we
what
don't
you're doing
send it in
now?
now,
Is
is there some jeopardy?
No, there's no jeopardy if you want to wait. for
Let's
that
just move it to the
answer.
next
I'm
meeting.
just wondering though, if you accept the funds, is that the amended part of it? Since you're accepting the IDA funds tonight, is that why you're amending it?
No, that's separate. These are separate items. This is the IDEA
And maybe we can
grant.
just-
I think speak a little bit about it in terms of general. This is the 07 application that's being amended. Typically, when they're submitted, there are estimates that are done for FICA and for other personnel-related costs, and sometimes they're adjusted by the state in terms of change in percentage, maybe not for FICA, but for other related personnel deductions. So what we do is we typically take any overages that may be left in that personnel line and either realign it to another area such as supplies or equipment or something of that nature. So that is typically the situation that happens in terms of the usual process of amendment, although I'm sorry I can't speak to this one specifically.
That's exactly what occurred last year. I was here for that submission, and we actually took money from tuition and spent it in other areas because our tuition count was plus the count in that grant. But
Okay, so this is a tweaking of
the money that was already provided to fully spend the budget.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, and remember A6 has been refined as Peter had indicated. Is there any other questions on these? Can I get a roll call vote on A3 through A7?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Fallon?
Yes.
Calzarano?
Yes.
Beckner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Mandel?
Yes.
Dr. Yagan?
Yes.
Dr. Seeley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Can I get a motion on A1?
I'll move it.
Can I get a second on A1?
Second.
Oh,
The moving second is for A1.
we're moving to those?
No.
No, I need to move them on, I need to move in second A1 and A2 now.
For discussion?
For discussion, and then we get to vote on it.
Okay.
Okay. Just like we did A3 through A7, moved to second, and then we voted on. Now we have to do A1 and A2 individually, because they were both requested before. A1 has been moved and seconded. Any discussion on A1? I'm sorry, Laura.
Yeah, I had some comments that I wanted to add on A1. I've been hearing this, I've got this for a year now since I've been on the board and been weighing heavily on, this decision here. And I do see that the opt-out program, benefits our students. We have a heavy course load. Our school has 2 electives. I think a lot of schools, high schools have 1 elective. And, the kids are under a lot of pressure. There's this admissions arms race, that goes on, and I think that this is one thing that alleviates, some pressure, the pressure cooker a little bit. And I do believe that the wellness program is important, very important for the kids as well. But perhaps there's some way we can creatively, integrate that and meet all our standards. Opt-out has changed over the year already, where I believe prior, opt-out was offered, throughout, the 4 years with no restrictions. So we already have restricted the opt-out, program somewhat. And that's what I want to say about that.
Okay. Any other comments or questions, Peter?
I don't understand why this is coming to the board at this point. I really think that this should go to the curriculum committee first. I mean, last August and September last year, they came to the proposal to eliminate the opt-out, touting the wellness program, and I think a number of us said, sounds like a great program, but we resisted on the elimination of the opt-out, but a number of us said, look, find another way to deliver it. We're not saying we don't like the concepts, but you haven't shown us that you really have to eliminate opt-outs in order to deliver this. When they saw that we weren't ready to eliminate opt-out, they regrouped and came back and said, well, we think we could probably get this if we eliminate one of the opt-out sessions for the freshmen, so we'll take that. Now they come back to us at the last meeting, and they don't give us any data showing what they've accomplished. Instead, they say, we throw up our hands, it didn't work, now you have to eliminate opt-out entirely for the freshmen. And last year, before this board voted on it, it went to the curriculum committee, and there was a discussion of it at the curriculum committee. And for the life of me, I have no idea why the people who want to eliminate opt-out didn't come to the curriculum committee this time to discuss it, so I'm going to urge all of us to send it to the curriculum committee.
Okay. Any other questions?
As curriculum person, it did come to us again. I've heard it again the previous year, and I heard it this year again. So it did come to the curriculum committee this year, and again it came in this form with the very strong request to let phys ed have their opt-out. And the background, of course, we all have to come to the conclusion, is how much more they're offering, and what are we taking away, and why are we taking one group, which would be the phys ed, or perhaps the band has been thrown in here, and it got thrown in my Bernie tonight again. We don't demand a study for every freshman, nor do we demand a study all the way through. It's just philosophically, do you feel every youngster should have the equal chance of getting some of their schoolwork done during the day? Our children all have very heavy schedules. They're all programmed after school, whether it's phys ed or some lessons or perhaps work or whatever else they're doing. So I've listened personally and decided that the phys ed people feel so strongly that they have something good to offer, and they would like the opportunity to have the students get it in the first year. They said that there will be certainly some students that they just can't work it into their schedule as long as they have the opt-out, and the opt-out is only for the phys ed youngsters at this moment. So again, I know how you feel, and we have discussed it, and discussed it. They think that they've made a full presentation. Obviously, you don't feel that they have, but they've made it time and time again.
Okay.
Maybe you don't like their presentation, but that's what they came up with.
I'm on the curriculum committee.
Am I on?
What?
Are we not both on?
I am.
On the new one.
Yeah, but aren't you on with me?
Yeah.
On the new one.
You weren't there in the morning when it was there. We had a morning meeting, like one of those early morning meetings.
Are you in the current, last year's curriculum committee?
Since this was brought up at the last meeting and questions were raised at the last meeting, I've been on the curriculum committee.
I think what she's referring to is brought up prior to this change of the committee structure.
To the extent that it's there, could you explain to me some of the different alternatives the curriculum committee has looked at with them for maybe having 1 year where you have 2 health classes to offer this? I agree with you. I understand that our phys ed people think this is very important and they want it very much. What we told them last August is get creative about how you deliver it. And so what have you explored with them on the curriculum committee before I was on it? I don't think it's been explored enough, and that's why I'm suggesting to the rest of the board it ought to come back to us on the curriculum committee, because we have to have a discussion whether some of these wellness concepts can be touched on in web curriculums or in having in sophomore or junior year, instead of 1 quarter of health, have 2 quarters of health. Teach it then. There are. It seems to me there's a whole lot of different ways. That's what I'd like our curriculum committee to look at.
Any other questions or comments on A1? Jerry?
Question I have is, and maybe it's just my recollection, but I thought at one point Mario said they were looking at the entire curriculum for phys ed, or is that just my belief or interpretation of what I was hearing? I thought there was
Who was looking at the entire curriculum for phys ed?
Mario. I thought one of the presentations said they were going to be looking at it because there were issues in general with meeting core curriculum standards, and they'd be going back and looking over. Is that something that's me making up, or is that something that I just didn't get right? I thought at one point I heard Mario say they were going to be looking because there were areas of phys ed or maybe that didn't meet core standards. This not being the only one, but, and they were going to be looking at the curriculum for phys ed in general, or is that just something I heard and heard wrong?
What you might be referring to is, I don't recall specifically the way you're phrasing it right now. What I do recall him saying is that he wanted to look at the process by which all of the courses are offered in physical education to continue to make them more specifically driven so that kids could take physical education electives and to be sure that those electives then paired correctly with the new standards in physical education. That's about as close as I can recall to what
So there's no real formal...
There's not a complete review that I'm aware of at this point.
I thought he said that we didn't meet core standards, and that
He did say that, yes.
And that the opt-out portion doesn't, when you substitute whatever it is, band or whatever sport team it is, they don't meet the core standards either. Therefore, his statement was, we do not meet core standards with the opt-out as the substitutes in place of phys ed. I thought he was very emphatic about that.
Right, I think Gary's point was that there was an understanding that he had that they were going to look at the entire physical education.
Yeah, and I thought,
including this, which would be a subset of that.
But we do not meet core standards when you substitute band or a specific sport in place of phys ed. We do not meet the core standards.
Has that come before the curriculum committee, that particular conversation as far as meeting the standards in general with the phys ed program, or what needs to happen or not?
Gary, he gave a very long presentation to the curriculum committee one morning. I couldn't begin to give it back to you. It was probably 45 minutes of telling, if I gave you back, I'll give you back the high points that stuck in my mind, which was, tell me what phys ed is today, because I really didn't know. So that I heard. I didn't hear him say that we were going to review what we're doing. I thought it was a completely different field than what I ever knew as phys ed. And I think he's just so gung-ho that they had so much to offer, and he just doesn't want the kids opting out for a sport because he thinks his program is very well-rounded, and by going to have the full presentation that phys ed can do, he has so much more to offer. And that's what I kept hearing. We have something better to offer the kids than taking that period of 40-odd minutes of study, which is fine if they socialize. We're not even interested in what they're doing. But, my gut feeling is if it's so important that our youngsters get pressure off them by having a study, wouldn't that be true across the board for all of them, not just for the ones who play a particular sport? But the sport had nothing to do with the program, and opting out, he felt, was really diminishing what they're offering to the youngsters. He can't really understand, and I guess I got convinced that I really don't understand why we want to put them in a study at that point.
Okay, is there any other questions on this? Pierce?
Pete, my recollection is that when we pressed at a meeting both Mario and Terry on exactly what core curriculum standards they were going to say we weren't meeting, that both of them backed away from that. I may be mistaken, but that's my recollection.
I don't think they were prepared to list the specific standard because there are standards and then there are A, B, C, and D or any number that determine whether you meet the core standards. And we did not cite the specifics, but they did say, and again, this is only my recollection, they were both in fact. And one is that the people who are, when you have a core standard, have to be certified to teach that specific subject. And when you take band or a specific sport, 9 out of 10 times, those people are not certified in those specifics for that course replacement. That I know was part of.
And I appreciated that, but the problem, and as Bernie reminded us, they have to meet the core curriculum standards at the end of 4 years.
No, it's per year or per subject.
So the state core curriculum standards.
Specifically course, if you replace a course with another course or with it states freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year. So it's not the culmination at the end, it's that specific phys ed 1, phys ed 2. So it's specific. Am I not right?
That's not the way the one I got off the state website says it.
You gotta use the microphone. Use the microphone, sorry. I just want to make sure that this discussion gets recorded.
Exactly.
Gets recorded properly.
I think Mr. Yaggett is reflecting what you will see on the DOE website clearly. It indicates that at the end of X years, for example, at the end of grade 4, it is expected that students will be able to, and then it lists at the end of grade 7, et cetera, at the end of grade 8, at the end of grade 8, and then at the end of grade 12. I believe that your assessment of how it appears on the DOE website is correct. But I do also have to say is that the DOE right now is expecting to review all of the course standards yet again, and this will be the third round. So I don't know that we have any direction as to how it's going to fare out again. It may take that same format. It may take a grade-by-grade format. We don't really know.
Can you, before you leave there, can you just reflect on when that review that they're supposed to go through on the core curriculum content standards is going to occur again? Because I recall the last time it happened very quickly.
This one, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be in 2010. If I'm not mistaken.
3 years away.
Yeah.
Okay. 3 years away.
Yeah. But the public hearings and all of the preliminary work begins probably now. So some of the plans are going to be formulated, and again, your experience with the state, it could be a year earlier, it could be a year later.
Do we have any other questions or comments that are going to be on A1, supportive or opposed to it? Yes, Sandy?
I'll try to just wrap up in my mind. I see this as a two-part concern of ours. One is to give our youngsters more time because they're doing something after school. And on that basis, I have to make up my mind, is this the best way of giving them the time? The other side of it, which I've discussed with Mario, is convince me that what you have to offer these youngsters is better for them during their time in school than that study period. Are you offering them something that they will not be able to get? Is your class work just enriching for them? And he said, yes, I do have something better to offer for them. And I guess that's why I'm looking toward having our youngsters get the most out of their school day. And I became convinced that the most they would get out of their school day would not be with the study period because they're going to play something after school, but rather I hope that what Mario's team is offering them is a worthwhile experience educationally for them. And that's why I'm saying I'm going for this.
I've been quiet. Let me just offer one comment. I actually agree with you on half of what you said, but I don't think it has to do with more time. While it would be great for us to say that I want to be able to provide the athletic or band people more time, there are a lot of other people out there that could make the same claim, particularly our robotics club, which did a great job this year. Between January and now, occupied, they probably don't sleep at night in order for them to deliver the things that they do. So I don't
Your drama kids too.
Pardon?
Your drama kids.
Your drama kids do. They're in a time of play. It's incredibly intense activity. And so I don't think more time is the issue. I think the real core issue on this, and this is what I would believe is, has to do with two things. One is duplicative work. That is, is somebody doing something at co-curricular that is actually replacing the part of the curriculum content, so I don't really need to do it twice. And the second thing has to do with meeting our monitoring requirements. We have to meet monitoring requirements, and is this going to help us or not help us in terms of meeting monitoring requirements? So that's where I didn't view it as a time issue as much as I view it as do I need to do the replicative work? And am I going to be able to pass monitoring, to be successful in QSAC? So that's my take on it. Peter?
And then we're really putting the cart before the horse, because we've heard tonight, we don't know whether or not this is going to be a monitoring problem. We've been alerted that it might be. But to change a program that's frankly working and working for the kids, because it might be, and because our phys ed teachers think this is a wonderful idea, is ignoring the needs of the kids.
Jerry, the only other thing I'd like to kind of close the comments on this, so we don't keep going around.
No, I understand, and I just,
But I'm going to give you the last chance.
Thank you. I wanted to support the opt-out elimination, but I have to agree with Peter that I think we asked for a lot of information to come back, and this is a data-driven board, and what I've seen is a lot of anecdotal evidence that it's not working, and some questions were raised about alternatives as people have done, and I'm not sure that we've really fully given the opportunity to find other avenues to deliver this, whether it's done at different points in the, in grade 9 through 12, or whether it's done through the web-based. So that's, to me, I think there's more that could be done here before we have to take this decision.
Okay.
Final 2 seconds.
Without any other questions, I'm going to ask you to get a roll call. Remember, we need a full majority. We need a majority of the full board.
You understand what we're voting on.
So once we get to 3 no's, we can just stop polling at that point.
So if you vote yes, you're voting to eliminate opt-out.
If you're voting yes, you're voting in favor of Resolution A1 that says that effective 2008-2009 school year, that freshman students should not have an opt-out of physical education option for participation in athletics. With that, can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Binder?
No.
Mr. Fallon?
No.
Mr. Alvarado?
Yes.
Mrs. Beckner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
No.
Mr. Mandel? I'm not going to stop voting. You
Get that recorded.
He's going to abstain at this point in time because it's already done.
Or you can pass.
Abstain.
No, you can. No, I'm not going.
Stricken from the record. Dr. Yagas?
No.
And Dr. Seeley?
I'll abstain.
Motion's defeated.
Can we all get a roll call vote on A2?
I'll move A2.
Wait a second.
Can I get a motion on A2?
I'll move A2.
Move to, why are we voting? It's a different item. No, but we've stricken, there's be no opt-out next year, right, Paul?
Just for freshmen.
Well, wait a minute. We're continuing with the same opt-out program that we have right now, I presume, for freshmen.
No, I'm saying freshmen can opt out, right?
Cannot.
Freshmen can opt out. The current program, if you can describe the current program, they can opt out for 1 season.
They can.
Yeah.
And A would have been, they couldn't as a freshman.
Right.
Okay. So now you're saying, just number 2, the issue is where the band members are on a par, if that's the right word, with athletes. I mean, any member of a team can opt out now, right?
Sophomores through seniors, 2, unless they have a study hall. You cannot have more than 1 study hall. Freshmen, 1, unless...
No, but the qualification is you participate in a sport?
Yes.
Okay. So now we're saying kids in the band, it's equivalent to a sport, therefore they'll be able to opt out. Is that what this vote?
No, this is the other way around. They currently have the right.
They can opt out.
They currently can opt out, just like you can in any of the sports.
They can opt out as if they're a member of the wrestling team.
Right.
Whatever.
And this is...
So now it's saying they will no longer be able to opt out.
Right. This is restricting a band member from being
So
able
it's
to...
eliminating the band members, which up to this point could opt out.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
And that's 4 years.
And so that's all for you. So that's why we need a separate motion on this.
Understood.
Can I get a
A2.
motion on it? Can I get a second on A2?
I'll second.
All right. So A2 has been moved and seconded. Can I get any discussion or comments on this?
This is a 4-year, just to be clear then, you're saying 4 years.
This will be for all 4 years.
All 4 years.
This is to say,
As long as
band members
you remember
no
the
longer
band.
get to opt out.
As long as you remember the band for 4 years.
Right.
Well, yeah,
Yes.
that's part of the motion. Yeah. So band members would not be able to opt. Oh, yes, Peter.
2 points. 1, again, our system isn't broken. There is no need to change it. I'll also tell you that my daughter at Cornell University this year got a phys ed credit for being in marching band. And they do an awful lot less work than our kids here in marching band do. These kids during the fall football piece, they're generally out there 3 days a week for an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, marching around with their instruments. Blowing on them and burning them down for the most part. And I don't see a reason to pick on the band kids. I think we should continue to support the band, and I would vote against this as well.
Can I get any other discussion on A2?
After what I said before, which means I think that the phys ed has something strong to offer our students, as long as we're going to select one group, I hate to put them in a different category than another group. So I basically would like not to have op-ed for the reason I think they belong where the department wants to give them something. I would then say I can't let one group have it and not another.
Whatever. Does that mean you?
Oh, then I'm going to say that the band people are as important
As worthy of it as others.
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments on A2? Any other comments on A2? Again,
it's not my position.
Remember, this requires a majority vote of the full board, so it's going to require at least 6 members. I guess we can't stop it here. Can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Binder?
No.
Fallon?
No.
Calzerano?
No.
Ms. Spector?
No.
Horowitz?
No.
Ms. Mandel?
No.
Dr. Yaget?
No.
And Dr. Seeley?
Do I really need to vote? I'll say no.
Is there a, Paul, is this issue, I just want, with, I think seems to be consensus that what the phys ed department wanted to do was a good idea.
You certainly get that feeling by everybody's ever mentioned it.
So is this, I'm trying to see, is this, is there still traction on this, or is this dead in the water? That's what I would like to understand.
I want to separate two things. One is has to do with the opt-out versus the other thing which has to do with the wellness program.
No, that's what the opt-out we took care of. I mean, that was the vote. But the issue of the wellness, I mean, I hate to think that it's dead in the water, because the issue, the sentiment of the majority at least, seem to feel it's a good idea, but not at the expense of the opt-out situation. So I think, if direction is needed, that Fran and everyone else that involved, and to go back to Mario, everyone thinks it's a tremendous, terrific idea. How can he achieve it or deliver it in a different way? I mean, that's
Yes. I think that's the general consensus.
To add one thing to that, though, I think the other thing with the opt-out, if you're going to do it for one grade or not one grade, you've got to be consistent across all grades, I think. And we talked about that before, but if it's a problem with opt-out, it seems to me there's a problem with opt-out, not opt-out for freshmen versus opt-out for a different grade level. So if you want to address opt-out, I think you need to do it across the board.
And I would suggest that
if you're not compliant, for example, with core standards as a driver.
And I think, as it has been discussed here, the whole opt-out wellness program ought to go back to the curriculum committee for additional discussion.
Oh, we'd love it again.
I'm sure you're going to love to have it again. So, with that, can we move on?
I have a question though before you do it. If it turns out that this does create a problem with our core curriculum requirements, could we then revisit it and say?
I'm sure that would have to be revisited at that point in time. And that's a good point. I think as we find out really the reality of QSAC and then also possible changes to the core curriculum content standards, we're going to revisit this topic. So, Rob, the question you were raising, it may well come back to visit us again. Somehow I think it will. With that, can we get a motion on B1?
I'll move B1.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion on B1? This was the course that was presented tonight.
Potential offering or offering?
Yeah.
I think it's a potential.
I don't know what potential's in there.
It's a potential offering. I presume that means if there's nobody who signs up for it, it's not going to be offered. If we get 35 students, which we already apparently have, it's going to be offered. But the way it gets written is going to be a potential in case, maybe all 25 of them will disappear or something.
They all live in Plainfield.
And can I get a discussion? Any other discussion on this? Can I get a roll call vote on this?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Fallon?
Yes.
Calzerano?
Yeah.
Mrs. Beckner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Mandel?
Yes.
Dr. Yaga?
Yes.
Dr. Seeley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, do I have any of the C1 through C8? The C8 is on the walk-ins, as a resignation. Can I get any of those C1 through C8 that want to be pulled separately?
Well, it's not a question of pulling. Is Brock resigning just as a supervisor or resigning as a teacher?
His position.
So he's not going to be teaching here?
Moving on to the
So that's why it wasn't clear to me.
Okay.
Not that he needs our approval to move on.
You don't want to pull anything, do you, Rob?
Do you want to pull anything?
Can
Okay.
I move C1 through C8?
Second.
Move it along.
We've got a move and second on C1 through C8. Any discussion?
First on C7, it says the reappointment, but then C6, you're also looking for applications for emergent hiring. So I was a little confused by that.
I think the answer is we did not have fingerprints on file for these youngsters, even though they worked here last year. So it is a reappointment, but this time we're requiring, as per law, that they have fingerprints on file.
That's correct.
Okay, that makes sense.
Go try.
And then the other thing was, the last meeting we talked about the bus drivers and fixing that schedule. I mean, just not because I see more bus driver rates, and so can that still be done?
Fixing the schedule?
Remember we had the schedule of dates of hire and the salaries, and I thought there were some questions.
Oh, that is being done, and it was, we're actually building a 10-year history, because the files jump up and down, and there was no logic to hiring date versus what they're paid now. So we're doing a complete history of that, as much for next year now as anything, so that we have a record that shows the date they were hired and how their salary fluctuated. Everybody was accurately appointed last month, but we do not have that 10 years of data backed into it.
And these are now being reappointed, and they're reappointed at the right rates?
That's correct.
Any other questions, comments? Can I get a, hearing none, can I get a roll call vote on C1 through C8?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Fallon?
Yes.
Calderon?
Yeah.
Dr.
Yes.
Horowitz? Ms. Mandel?
Yes.
Dr. Yaga?
Yes.
Dr. Seeley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
We have motions D1 through D13. Does anybody want to pull any of those for separate consideration?
Yeah, 8 and 9.
8 and 9. Okay.
Can I move?
Can we get, let me ask you a question. Do you want to pull 8 to adjust the wording on that, Pete?
As we talked this morning.
Yeah, it's not changed here. Can we just how would you like 8 to read? The concession stand and...
Concession stand and storage shed.
And storage shed. Can I adjust D8 before we move it in second? Just as you look at D8, part 2 there, it says concession stand, sewer connection. We want to revise that to say concession stand and storage shed. That's to reflect the comment that Kevin made, which is we're going to run sufficient line sizes up into that area, and so that we can include bathroom facilities up there in that area.
What building is the storage?
The storage shed is,
Right
which
next
is,
to the snack shack.
which is the old ticket booth, which is a huge building used for storing,
The ticket booth.
It's right next to the ticket. It is part of the ticket.
part of the ticket booth, which is stores pads.
Would you want to change 9 the same way to make it
To reflect that all
have the same words to 8 and 9?
right, so that 8 would include 1, 2, and 3, 3 being storage shed, and 9 would list concession stand and storage shed. So all the engineering is done on that third separate building,
But you need an item 3, or can you just add the words and storage?
However it's covered, Bernie, however it's covered.
We can add it to just say concession stand and storage shed.
Yeah, I think that's covered.
No, it does
Fine.
not. It's really part and parcel of the same thing. We talked about it at building and grounds also.
Okay.
Then,
For this work, so it's
with
not...
that amendment, then I would like to move, if I may, unless somebody wants to pull something, D1 through D13.
Second.
Discussion on D1 through D13. And remember, D8 has been revised so that it says concession stand and storage shed, and D9 has been revised to include the same wording.
Just a question about D13. This equipment that's being donated, I can't really, who knows what it is?
I do. I know some of it. I can't speak to all of it.
It looks like cameras.
It has to do with camera equipment and recording equipment that allows them then to videotape football games and then to subsequent. What they actually do is pretty cool. And it's for the kids. It's also for coaching. They take football games and they basically separate each play and they identify players that were involved in that play, and then they can use it at the end of the year for the generation of tapes for those kids that are applying to colleges, and also then for coaching. It's used in the coaching the next morning, actually.
I just have a question about that. It seems to me that when we accept a gift like that, there's no reason why that equipment couldn't be used by other athletic organizations. I mean, I understand it's primarily for the football team, which is a fall sport. Is there any reason that it's restricted to the basketball team or lacrosse team?
I don't know. Well,
I mean, who's going to own the equipment?
The district, right?
District, right?
It goes to the district.
So we can see.
We need to be careful with the donor's request too. Sometimes the donor will have a specific request.
Well, that might be so.
Well, I think that's the issue, whether or not we want to accept. First of all, are you telling us that this donor has put that particular limitation on it? And if they have, then I think we have to have a discussion as to, whether we want to ask the donor to eliminate that restriction. So the first question is, has that donor put this restriction on it?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, the donor's view is to have it used for the football team. And
I don't disagree with that. I don't know if anybody else disagrees with it, but the question, I don't know why we would accept it as only being able to be used, as Rob brought up, for the football team.
Yes, I understand if they, Saturday during the day or Friday night they're using it to film the football game. I would be kind of surprised, but I've been surprised in the past that, then Tuesday Coach Lubrick wants to use the equipment, to film the girls soccer, or then Coach Mary Sock, wants to for the track team.
But then you're putting restrictions on the use of it by the specific group, because then you're saying football can only have it 2 hours for day 1, 3 hours, and then you restrict.
I didn't say that.
But that's in essence what might happen.
Then
we become the distributor of use.
Well, we own it. It's the first
but if I'm donating it, and I think accept the donation, if there are restrictions, state it. If not, then they have the option to withdraw it.
I mean, I'll tell you what we would have, if you want to answer this question, the thing to do is, because I'm actually part of this group, so I don't want to say just go back to this group and find out if they have a restriction on the donation, and if they don't, then fine. If they do, then you would know.
So maybe the restriction might be only for the football season, that maybe the spring teams might be able to use it as well.
That's pretty much what I was going to suggest. I mean, presumably, if people from the Watchung Hills Football Booster Club went out of their way to collect this money and fundraise for this money, just logic to me would say they would get precedence over the usage of that equipment. If the equipment were available, then, and it was free and open, then I would think if it belongs to the district, then whoever else, would, have a use for it, could use it under those circumstances.
No, but the issue is, if someone gives us a gift with a restriction, whether it's a legally enforceable contract, I give you $10,000 to have a reading room in the library that's just women only can read books in that corner. Okay, that's the requirement. Here I don't have a problem with it being donated, for the use of the football team, but that should not exclude, with reasonable, agreements. And I don't want to make this a bigger thing than it is. If the soccer team wants to use the equipment, or if the swimming team or the hockey team, it's our equipment, and we decide with that in mind.
I understand. Let me point out, this group spends a lot of time and effort in, as a matter of fact, starting now, raising money. And that money is raised by this group really for the purposes and devoted to the football kids, because that's their parents of, and that's what they want to see their dad play. So if you want to use that equipment then for other uses, like soccer or lacrosse, then I would suggest that equipment then should be leased to those people or rented to them, because quite frankly, there's a depreciation of this equipment over time, and the usage depreciates it.
What do you mean leased?
The usage of this equipment.
No, I said, Paul,
Listen,
you said
somehow there
leased.
should be the people that want to use it should then help pay for some of that usage.
What do you mean?
However you want to do it.
It's our equipment. So it's soccer.
But I'm just saying
The soccer team is going to make a payment to who?
All I'm saying is that this group has spent a lot of time and effort to raise the money to be able to make this donation, and then to say, well, now we're going to use it for 5 other purposes and as such, then reduce the useful life for football, takes it away from what that original intended use was. Now, I'm not speaking for this group because I can't do that. But they may say that's the argument that they're going to make to you, which is
we don't know. We can turn it down. We won't be debating something inside the debate. Say, listen, it's for the football team, but if you see, we don't have a problem with the soccer team or the track team or the lacrosse team.
They could just as soon turn around and say, no, we're not going to do that. I'm surprised that we'd even debate a donation, to be honest with you, in a school that needs donations financially. So I'm just surprised about that.
I would think the issue more would be of breakage rather than,
There's breakage.
Yeah.
This stuff is delicate camera equipment. It does not live long. And so, how much usage do you really want to try to run through it? And I'm going to take it and now start to use it for other things. And you're going to reduce.
Well, then why are they donating it? Why don't they just go, film the games and give the game tapes?
I'm just saying is that they spend a lot of time to create. To raise the money, it gets purchased for this equipment. The intent of that was for the football program. It really wasn't intended to be used for other things.
Right now,
and if you then use it, if you then use it for other things, you will reduce the useful life of that equipment for the football team.
Okay. Right now, we know that there's someone. Give me 1 second, Sandra. Talking about a significant donation to the track. Okay, person is going to make a significant donation to it would enable us to resurface our track. That person says it's for the track team. So we're going to say football team, soccer team, you can't run around the track because it's going to depreciate the value of that track. Are we going to start a precedent where people give us, make donations and restrict the use on those donations to one group in the school against other groups in the school? Same thing, Paul?
No, I think it's quite a bit different, actually.
Sandy? Well, I'm going to agree with you that one is the physical usage of a macadam pavement, which is not a delicate item. And it's going to wear because it's better enough by usage. But I know that in the past there has been gifts given. We didn't have street lights and things in the auditorium which theater people needed and wanted, and parents got together and purchased or donated the money for something to be purchased for the school for usage. This to me falls in the same category. It was the theater people are a club outside of the normal work-a-day, and parents who were supporting that theater interest, and that compares me to this. I would think it's very sad if we turn down items that are for specific use. I don't have a problem if someone wants to.
I'm one of the parents that helped raise the money on this, but I will abstain actually from voting on this.
Let me
I didn't realize there'd be any kind of issue.
Peter, go ahead.
Sandy, I think we should gratefully accept this. I think what we've illustrated here, though, tonight is there are issues that frankly, we don't know about this. And if the nature of this equipment is such that it only makes sense for it to be used by the football team, then so be it. I think beyond that, we ought to gratefully accept this donation, but I think somebody, and whether it's our VA or somebody, ought to talk to the group and get an understanding of what their understanding is in donating it to us this time. And maybe we need a policy in the future with respect to donations for specific groups. I mean, Paul is right to the extent that these people saw a need and they're trying to fill it, and we shouldn't look that gift horse in the mouth. The point I was trying to make is that, and I wasn't even thinking of during the same season, frankly, because I think football is pretty intense as it's going on, and I don't know that you'd be able to have it successfully used for others. But I don't know that it's the type of equipment that taking it out for the basketball games endangers it to where you may maybe having a problem with it. But I think we ought to just accept it, then approach these people and say, what's the story? Would you have a problem with it? Right now, we're in a situation where we don't even know if there is a restriction on how it was donated. So let's take it.
Do you want to pull it off the agenda?
No, I don't want to pull it. I think we should accept it.
The agenda says football team.
I mean, it says
It's pretty clear. It's very clear that the boosters, unless I'm missing something, but that's what they...
I haven't seen the letter.
I don't mean to, Howard is trying to stop it. That's what the recommendation that you brought forward, is that not correct?
Yeah, football.
Okay.
Then why wouldn't the donation just be to the coach? Why does it come through us?
Because we have to approve the
Your board of
donation.
education, you have to...
But no, I mean, this is a separate organization, isn't it? They raise their own money?
But the booster club is donating to the school district for the use of the football team. The board has to accept donations. Legally, you have to do that. All donations.
Do we have a policy, I mean, Peter asked the question, do we have a policy on donations?
Yes.
And what does it say regarding anything like this? Is it addressed, is it not addressed, or?
I would have to take a look at it, Chair.
I'd be curious to see, and whether it does say something about it or not, or just.
It's a pretty comprehensive policy. We've been reviewing it in light of the other donations, and it was a pretty well-written policy, so I bet it does address it.
I mean, because that really, you shouldn't be debating this as a policy, you should be guided by policy on all these matters. Right.
Chairman, it wasn't clear to me because when I asked the question before, you didn't know whether it was restricted, and...
No, I'm going right by the resolution.
But who wrote the resolution? I don't know that came from the Booster Club, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If it came from the Booster Club, then I agree with you totally. But I don't know who wrote the resolution.
No, I have the resolution. I wrote it, and it came from the principal, and it's here tonight for the board.
We're going to accept it.
That's true.
We're going to accept it. There's no reason.
I agree. I take it. Nora?
Peter, you have a member of the Booster Club sitting next to you.
I can't speak for the Booster Club, to be honest with you. I mean, it's a
You didn't know
group of
that.
other people that discuss these things and vote on it, and they're meeting actually in a couple of weeks,
I think Tom did, though. I think he did speak for the Booster Club, at least from his understanding of it, correct?
I'm sure it was. I mean, I was at the meeting when this was discussed, and the agreement was that, the coaches come forward, they say, and we ask them, what are the things that you really need to help improve the program? Based on those, and other things are bought that the school would normally pay for, but it's paid for by these donations, so it comes into like equipment and other things that they use for the practices, just like, remember the weight room and the donations and things like that were earlier. And that thing goes into the funding. So the last meeting, there was a discussion about what is it that you need, and this was the category of things that was needed. And so we said, okay, and we talk and find out if there's funds for that and decide that this is what we can pay, this is what we can fund, given that we're then trying to make sure that we have sufficient funds going into next year to do the other things that need to be done in August. So that's kind of the discussion that goes on there. But
Would we have taken the donation of that weight room by any sports team? I'm not, soccer, whoever, and said, we're donating a soccer weight room for the soccer team.
that weight room is used by everybody.
That's my question. But if it's to a person who donated and said, here's $50,000 to upgrade the weight, to make a weight room to be a soccer weight room.
I can't answer the question about whether or not, and I don't know if anybody in this room is, and I can tell we can go back to them and find out, whether or not this group feels it has to be specific for the football team. I mean, if that's the question, we go back and ask them. But what happens if they come back and say, yes, it is specific for the football team? Is anybody here going to change their vote?
No, I'm going to vote for it.
We're going to accept it.
Then why are we discussing it?
Well, I think it raises a philosophical question of, and in this particular case, it might be, like you said, delicate equipment that, should not be shared, but it does raise a philosophical question whether, resources get pooled and shared by various groups, when applicable. So I think under that,
Well, can we separate that discussion?
That's a future policy discussion.
Okay, so I think that's kind of...
Come back to this. Is anybody going to vote this thing down if it says for the football team? Or
the other piece of it is, I think that as a board, I would like to see us make donations be welcoming. I mean, I'm grateful for these kinds of donations.
This discussion, let me tell you, this discussion does not appear like a board that is welcoming donations.
Well,
I just want you, that's my opinion.
Of course, but...
Well, let's vote on it.
Can we
Yes.
vote on it?
Good idea.
Can I get a roll call vote on D1 through D13?
Whoa. There's other questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Other topics for discussion.
Yes.
Go ahead.
D1 on the bill list, there was a bill for Pritchard for $43,000. And that's the cleaning service. Do we prepay the entire thing? It says May, but do we prepay the entire, it's the second year of bid?
No, it's monthly.
We pay $43,000 monthly?
I don't know exactly the amount monthly, but we pay
Prorated.
monthly, yeah, prorated. Their contract's over $500,000.
But the bill we're paying is it really? Okay. Okay. That answers that question.
Any other questions on D1 through D13?
The other one I had was D11 on the money, and it's obviously a very welcome and needed program. We talked about that, but just wanted to know where the money's coming from out of the budget if you have funds.
We're going to discuss it in the finance committee. What we're going to have to do is there's going to have to be a transfer to be made.
Okay.
If we were to award, we have to be awarded the grant first.
Right. Okay. I'd just like to know at some point where it's
Yeah,
getting out.
we're going to have to
What we're
reserve
giving
funds
up
to
in
do
order
that.
to do this.
Questions? Can I get a roll call vote on D1 through D13?
Mr. Binder?
Yes.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Alvarado? Mr. Beckner?
Yes.
Mr. Horowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Mandel?
Yes.
Dr. Yaga?
Yes.
Dr. Seeley?
Yes. Can you note that I abstained on D13 now?
You abstain?
I will vote on D1 through D13. Abstain on D13.
Remember that group.
I don't want any kind of suggestion that there was,
You didn't put your
I'm not even, I offer my services to take pictures for Gillian. I actually sit on the...
Canon ZR900?
No, I've actually, no, I don't do that. This is actually for video stuff, which I've done also. All right, can we go on to other business? Any other business?
Sure. I guess two things. One is, there was a question that came up in Greenbrook with exchange students and busing. And, Greenbrook Board not being really notified about, have you heard about this one?
There's exchange students who were supposed to go on a Greenbrook bus. And the Greenbrook Transportation Department was not notified. Unfortunately, a fax was sent. The fax did not reach its destination. It was not followed through. Greenbrook never got the fax. We thought we sent the fax. They were surprised to find folks on their bus that didn't belong. So we had to essentially take those students. That's the gist of what happened.
Okay.
They should have been notified. They weren't through a clerical error.
Yeah, and the conversation that also surrounds us because of the other situation that we had with the one student. And I guess I'm not sure these exchange programs are formal exchange programs with high school, and I think students should be transported as part of that program. So I'm not sure if this is something that still needs to be discussed somewhere, or
Could you tell us what the issue is?
It must be the Spanish.
we have Spanish exchange programs going on right now, and bus drivers saw students on the bus that weren't supposed to be on the bus, and they asked them to get off the bus.
Is it fixed now?
No, they've gone home.
We're done.
I mean, it ended on Saturday.
We had a communication error. We didn't properly communicate the information to Greenbrook, and they saw students on their bus that didn't belong.
All right, yeah, fair enough.
If it had been communicated, would there have been an issue?
That's what I want to make sure.
Not based on past practice. They've always taken those students in.
So we'll just make sure that, it does get
Something different.
No, the question, because of the other thing that happened previously in the year where the transportation of the other students, we had to look at whether or not we're supposed to transport, and we were told, no, we're not supposed to transport, non-resident district students.
That's a different issue. That was someone who was going to be a
I
resident.
agree, but I'm not sure everybody does agree, so I'm not sure whether there needs to be discussion on this or not.
What happened in that case?
Where should the discussion occur?
We did not transport, because we were specifically told by our insurance and legal.
Their kids weren't on the bus, they were told to leave the bus, right? That didn't happen, is that correct?
No.
This is separate.
So the one student that happened before that came through the other church program wanted transportation, and we were specifically told by insurance and otherwise that we shouldn't be transporting non-resident students. So the question, I think, and maybe this could be answered or somehow with exchange programs, is there some kind of a waiver?
No.
Because they weren't a legal guardianship, the student didn't become a legal guardianship. But is there some way that, that the students could be transported or something could be signed by the exchange program or some documentation that allows us to transport those students? Because we want to transport them, but we want to do it legally.
I think students,
So
parents are transporting.
that kid from Brazil, who the eventual settlement was Greenbrook didn't pay for the student, and we absorbed it here, and Greenbrook wouldn't pay for the transportation.
We did not pay for the transportation. We were told we weren't allowed to transport the students because we didn't have.
Did you pay for it?
No, we told the mother that the mother had to be responsible for the transportation.
So it wasn't built as district.
No.
But the district picked up the tuition because it was their.
Right. But I think just going forward, just to make sure that there's I's and T's that we're allowed to transport, whether there's paperwork in place that allows us to do that, or something signed, or something that gives us the ability, the insurance standpoint, to do the transportation. Notwithstanding the notification, I mean, that happens. But, okay, so maybe I don't know what part of the exchange program is. I know my daughter's going to be doing it in November, hopefully. So we'll be taking somebody in Greenbrook, and I'd like to be able to put them on the bus.
I think the two departments communicate will be fine.
Okay. And then the other thing was to be aware that work at PSC&G. They had this wonderful little notice that outlines the news thing that says not only is electric rates going up come June 1st by a significant amount of money, but you can expect a big increase in gas prices too. Natural gas prices.
Great.
On the order of 20%.
How much?
On the order of 20%. Residential gas prices. Natural gas is gone. So I don't know where we stand with ACEs or if they purchase or not. Anyway.
Any other business at this time? This is the second opportunity for the public to comment on non-agenda topics. Same rules apply, name and address. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period and we'll move on into executive session. Can I get a motion to move into executive session for the purposes of attorney-client privilege discussions along with negotiations, personnel, and after the executive session, action may be taken.
So move.
Personnel, yeah. I mentioned personnel. Yeah, I mentioned personnel. Yeah, it's not on that. Can I get a second on that? Can I get a second on going into executive session?
Peter, take second.
Second.
We got a second on it. We've been moved to second. We're officially in executive session. I apologize for the lateness of the hour. Do we have a resolution?
Yeah.
We already got the public.
Okay. With respect to the students, we'll utilize initials.
Yes.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, determines that AK and JK are not domiciled within the district and directs the initiations of proceedings to collect tuition for the 2007-2008 school year or some portion thereof out to each student.
So moved.
We have a move. Do you have a second?
Second.
Jerry moved it.
Second round.
Rod seconded it.
I'm finding the important thing that I was fighting for isn't in that resolution, or is that going to be in the letter?
It will be in the letter.
That would be in the letter. Any other discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Do we need a roll call vote?
If there are any no's, we can record it. That's fine, right?
Yeah. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Any abstentions?
Any abstentions? Thank you. No abstentions?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's yes. So, nothing else to talk about? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Adjourn, yes,
Can I get a second? In favor? Aye. Aye.